The Man in Black Who Chose Me, and the Empire I Never Saw Coming. She was invisible for 26 years. Then a man in black sat at her table, looked straight through her skin, and said her name like he already owned it. By the time she learned who he really was, the guns, the guards, the bodies buried under his money, she was already in too deep to run. And the worst part, she didn't want to. If you've ever wondered what it feels like to be chosen by someone the whole world is afraid of, stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and drop the name of the city you're watching from down in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels tonight. Now let me tell you about Lena Carter and the summer the devil walked into her restaurant wearing a $5,000 suit. The heat on St. Calliope Island didn't fall from the sky so much as crawl up from the pavement, the kind of wet, white heat that stuck a waitress's shirt to her back by 10 in the morning and didn't let go until the last ferry pulled out at midnight. Lena Carter had been standing in it for 6 hours already, and the lunch rush hadn't even started. She wiped her palms on the front of her apron. Black, stained with something orange from yesterday, no one had noticed or she would have heard about it, and pushed through the swinging door into the dining room of the Blue Anchor. The restaurant sat at the low end of the harbor where the tourist money thinned out, and the locals still came for cheap beer and burnt fish. 4 walls painted the color of a chlorine pool, a tin roof that sang when it rained, 19 tables, 12 of them wobbling, and a ceiling fan that chopped the air without actually moving it. "Lena, table 6 wants water again." That was Dimitri, the owner, shouting from behind the bar without looking up from his phone. He was 60-something, thick in the belly, thin in the hair, and he'd been promising Lena a raise for 14 months now. Every time she brought it up, he'd wave his hand like he was shooing a fly and say something about the season being slow, the euro being weak, his ex-wife being expensive. Lena had stopped bringing it up around March. "Got it," she said. "And smile, huh? You look like somebody died." She smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. It hadn't reached her eyes in a long time. On the way to table 6, she caught her own reflection in the mirrored panel behind the bar. A quick, unkind glimpse. 26, she reminded herself, though the woman in the glass looked closer to 30, dark hair pulled back so tight it made her forehead hurt, skin gone gold from the sun, not in the glamorous way the tourist girls got it, but in the worn way, the way leather went gold when it was cheap. A mouth that used to laugh. Eyes her mother used to call mountain water green back when her mother was still saying things like that. Back before the cancer and the hospital bills and the one-way ticket to this island that was supposed to save her and hadn't saved anything. She looked away. Table 6 was a family of 4, British, sunburned, already 3 pitchers of sangria in, and the dad kept calling her love in a way that made her jaw lock. She set down the waters. She smiled. She left. "Table 9 needs their check," Dimitri called. "I know." And somebody spilled, "I know, Dimitri." He made a sound like air coming out of a tire and went back to his phone. The clock above the kitchen door read 11:47. Lunch rush would hit at noon, peak by 1, finally start thinning around 3. Then there was a gap where she could sit on an upturned crate behind the kitchen and eat whatever Mama Sofia had left in the pot. Then dinner, then closing, then a 2-mile walk back to the rented room above the laundromat because the bus stopped running at 10. Then 6 hours of sleep if she was lucky. Then up again. That was the shape of Lena Carter's life. That was the shape of it the morning Adrian Voss walked in. He came in alone, which was the first thing that was wrong. Men like him didn't come in alone. Lena didn't know that yet. She didn't know anything about men like him yet. But her body knew it before her brain did. Her shoulders went up. Her throat got tight. The little hairs on her forearms stood up the way they did before a storm cracked open the sky. She was bent over a table wiping crumbs into her palm when the door chimed, and she looked up mostly out of habit. The first thing she saw was the suit. Black. Not restaurant black, not funeral black. The kind of black that was stitched by hand and didn't crease when the man sat down. The kind of black that cost more than she'd made in her entire life put together. In this heat, in this harbor, at a place where the nicest customer they'd had all month was a German retiree who tipped in coins. The second thing she saw was his face. He was maybe 40, maybe 38, maybe 43. One of those ages where the calendar stopped telling the truth about a man. Dark hair cut short and close, a few threads of silver at the temple, a jawline that looked like it had been drawn with a ruler. Not handsome the way the tourist boys were handsome. Nothing soft about him, nothing boyish. Handsome the way a blade was handsome. Functional, quiet, dangerous in a way you noticed before you could name. He stopped just inside the door and looked around the restaurant like he was reading it. Not like a customer looking for a table. Like a man checking the exits. His eyes passed over the bar, over Dimitri, over the open kitchen, over the two American backpackers splitting a pizza, over the British family, over the wobbling ceiling fan and the chipped paint and the cracked tile floor. And then they landed on Lena, and they stopped. Lena felt it before she understood it. A pressure at the top of her chest, a flush that started at the base of her throat and climbed. He wasn't leering. It wasn't that kind of look. Tourist men leered at her 8 times a day, and she could brush it off the way you brushed off flies. This was something else. This was a man looking at her like he was reading a file, like he already knew her name and was just comparing it to the photograph. She straightened up. The crumbs fell out of her palm. He walked to table 4, her section, the worst table in the house, right under the broken ceiling fan, the one she only ever sat couples who didn't tip, and pulled out a chair and sat down, and put his hands flat on the table in front of him. He didn't look at a menu. He didn't look at his phone. He looked at her. "Lena!" Dimitri's voice snapped behind her, and she jumped. "Table 4, go!" He just sat himself. Everybody sits themselves. We're not the Ritz. Go. She went. She grabbed a menu on the way, a laminated thing with a ketchup thumbprint on the corner, and she walked over and set it down in front of him and said, in the voice she used for all of them, the voice that had been sanded down to nothing by 1,000 8-hour shifts, "Welcome to the Blue Anchor. Can I get you something to drink while you look at the menu?" He didn't touch the menu. "Water," he said. "No ice, no lemon, and black coffee, if you have it strong." His voice was low. American. She'd expected Eastern European for some reason, maybe because of the suit, maybe because Dimitri's clientele skewed that way. But American, and specifically the flat, vowel-shaved American of the East Coast, New York maybe, somewhere that got cold. No accent she could place beyond that, no warmth in it, but no coldness either. Just a voice that said what it meant and didn't waste syllables. "Sure," she said. "Anything else?" He looked at her for a beat too long before answering. "Not yet." She almost asked him what he meant by that. Almost. But the British dad called love at her from across the room, and she turned and went, and by the time she got back to the kitchen, her hands were shaking. She told herself it was the heat. Mama Sofia, 6 feet tall, and 70 if she was a day, was at the espresso machine with a cigarette in the corner of her mouth, even though there were 3 signs in the dining room about smoking. She took one look at Lena and raised an eyebrow. "What?" "Nothing," Lena said. "Guy at 4 wants black coffee. Strong." "A man in a suit?" "Yeah." Mama Sofia made a face. "I saw him come in. He's not here for the sangria." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means strong coffee." Mama Sofia pulled the shot and didn't smile. "Be careful with that one, cariño." "It's a customer." "Hmm? "It's just a customer, Sofia." "I said be careful. You used to know what careful meant, before Dimitri broke you." Lena didn't answer. She took the coffee and the water and went back out. She set the coffee down in front of him with a little more noise than she meant to. The cup clicked against the saucer. "Sorry." "Don't be." She started to turn away. "Lena." She stopped. She hadn't told him her name. Her name tag was on her apron, yes, crooked, half covered by a grease smear. But he hadn't glanced at it that she'd seen, and nobody said her name like that. 2 syllables, slow, like he was weighing them in his mouth to see what they were worth. She turned back. "Yes? Sit down." Just like that. "No, please." Not rude, exactly. She'd had Rude, she knew Rude. Rude was the German man last week who'd snapped his fingers at her 3 times in a row, until she walked away. This wasn't that. This was a man who was used to being listened to. A man who had spent so much of his life giving quiet orders and watching them get carried out that he'd forgotten the other words existed. "I can't," she said. "Why not?" "I'm working. I'll pay for your time." She let out a laugh before she could stop herself, a short, surprised thing. That's not how this works, sir." He didn't smile, but something happened at the corner of his mouth that was almost a smile. "What time do you get off?" "I don't." "What time?" 11. He nodded, once, like a man noting something down, and reached into his jacket. She tensed. Some animal part of her tensed, the part of her that had been a woman alone on an island for 2 years. But what came out of the jacket was just a billfold. He laid 4 notes on the table. $100 bills. American, new enough that the ink still looked wet. "That's for the coffee," he said. "Sir, that's for you to sit down for 5 minutes." She stared at the money. $400. 400 American dollars, sitting on a table in a restaurant where the most expensive thing on the menu was a €22 seafood platter. $400 was her rent. $400 was her rent and her phone bill and 2 weeks of groceries. $400 was a plane ticket. Part of one. Part of the plane ticket she'd been saving for 19 months and was still $400 short on. She looked at Dmitri at the bar. Dmitri wasn't looking. He was still on his phone. She looked at the man. 5 minutes, she said, and she sat down. Up close, he was worse. Not uglier. Worse. The kind of worse where you notice things, and the things you noticed made a picture you didn't want to finish. A thin scar at his hairline above the left eye, old enough to be silver. Another one at the base of his throat, disappearing into the collar of a white shirt that had probably cost more than her rent. A watch on his left wrist that she didn't recognize the brand of, but recognized the weight of. The heavy, unadvertised weight of real metal. A ring on his right hand, dark stone, no crest. Clean fingernails. Hands that weren't pretty. The knuckles of the right hand had been broken at some point and reset and hadn't quite lined up again. Those hands folded themselves on the table in front of her. "What's your name?" he asked, and it was the first thing he'd said that sounded like a normal human question. "You already knew it." "I read it off the tag." "No, you didn't." He looked at her, and then, for the first time, he really did almost smile. "Lena Carter," he said. 26, born in a town called Millbrook outside Pittsburgh. Mother, Diane Carter, passed April of last year. Father, unknown. You worked 2 years at a dental office and 8 months at a community college library before you came here. You've been at this restaurant for about 14 months. Your landlord's name is Andreas. You pay him €420 a month in cash. You walk to work because the morning bus costs $180 and you're saving to leave. He said all of it evenly, like he was reading a grocery list. Lena's hands were numb. The dining room around her had gone very, very small. "Who are you?" she said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. That surprised her. "Who the hell are you?" "Adrian Voss?" "That doesn't mean anything to me." "Good." "Are you a cop?" "No." Are you with some kind of agency? Because I swear to, I'm not with any agency, Lena." "Then how do you—" "Because I wanted to know." He said it the way another man might say, "Because I was thirsty." Like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like wanting to know something about a waitress in a failing restaurant on an island in the middle of nowhere, and then knowing it was how normal men spent their Tuesdays. She stood up. "Thank you for the coffee, sir. I have to— Sit down, please." The please stopped her. Not because it was polite, because it was the first time he'd used a softening word at all, and it landed wrong on him, the way a smile lands wrong on a statue. She sat back down. She did not know why. "Oh, I'm not going to hurt you," he said. "People who aren't going to hurt you don't usually have to say that." "That's fair. I mean it." "I know you do." "Oh." The British family was laughing about something at the other table. Dmitri was still on his phone. The ceiling fan was still doing its useless circle overhead, chopping nothing. And Lena Carter was sitting across from a man in a $5,000 suit who knew her dead mother's name, and she could not make her legs carry her away from the table. "Why?" she said finally. "Why what?" "Why do you know those things about me?" He was quiet for a long moment. He picked up the coffee cup. He drank from it. He set it down. I was looking for someone, he said. Someone like me? Someone exactly like you. That's not an answer. I know. She felt her temper rise up. It had been rising for 2 years and he'd given it an excuse. Then give me a real one, or I'm walking away and I'm keeping your $400 for my trouble. He looked at her and this time something changed in his face. Not warmth exactly. Interest. The look of a man who had been expecting one kind of woman and was reassessing in real time whether he'd gotten a different one. Good, he said quietly. Keep it. Don't patronize me. I'm not. Answer my question. He leaned back in his chair. The chair was a cheap white plastic thing, and it didn't creak for him the way it creaked for everyone else. Because Adrian Voss was one of those men who had learned how to distribute his weight so he didn't make noise. I was in this country on business, he said, a week ago. There's a villa on the west side of the island, up past the old lighthouse. I've owned it for some years. I don't come often. I came last week because I needed to be somewhere I wasn't expected. Okay. The first night I couldn't sleep. I walked down to the harbor at about 2 in the morning. I passed this restaurant. It was closed. A woman was sitting on the curb out front crying. Lena's stomach dropped because she knew which night he was talking about. She knew exactly which night. It was the night Dimitri had screamed at her for breaking a wine glass. One glass, one 12-euro glass, and had docked her a full shift's pay for it, and she had walked outside and sat on the curb and cried for 45 minutes because she did not have the money to eat the next day. That was you, she said. Yes. You were there. Yes. You watched me cry for 45 minutes. I watched you for about 8 minutes. Then I went back to the villa. And then you... She couldn't make the word come out. Investigated was the word. Researched, studied. None of them wanted to come. Then I had someone look into you. Who does that? I do. Who does that, Adrian? It was the first time she'd said his name. It came out flatter and angrier than she'd expected. He noticed. She saw him notice. A man who has learned over a long time that he only trusts things he's already checked, he said. A man who saw a woman crying alone at 2 in the morning and wanted to know why. Why would you want to know why? He didn't answer that one right away. When he did, it was so quiet she almost didn't catch it. I don't know, he said. That's the honest answer. I don't know. I haven't wanted to know anything about anyone in a long time. Chag. Lena sat there. The smart thing, the thing any woman with any sense would have done, was to stand up, walk to the kitchen, tell Mama Sofia to call the police, and never come near this man again for the rest of her life. She knew that. Part of her was screaming it. A voice that sounded like her mother. A voice that sounded like every scary story every woman had ever told another woman at a bus stop or a bar or a bathroom mirror was telling her in no uncertain terms to get up, get up, get up. But a different part of her, a quieter part, a part that had been starving for 2 years and didn't even know it was starving, was leaning forward. Because Adrian Voss, whoever he was, whatever he was, had just looked across a table at her and said, I wanted to know. Nobody had wanted to know anything about her in a very long time. Her mother had died alone in a hospital in Pennsylvania, while Lena held a plastic cup of bad coffee and watched a monitor go flat. Her father had never existed to begin with, just a name on a form. The boyfriend she'd had in college had wanted to know what was for dinner and whether she'd paid the cable bill. Dimitri had wanted to know if table 6 was finished. The tourists had wanted to know where the bathroom was. Nobody had sat across from her and looked at her like she was something worth the trouble of knowing. It was disgusting, she thought, that she was responding to it. It was pathetic. She was pathetic. She still didn't get up. What do you want from me? She said. Nothing yet. That's a bad answer. It's a true one. Yet is the word I don't like, Adrian. He nodded slowly. He seemed pleased almost that she'd caught it. All right, he said. Here's what I want. I want to have dinner with you. Tomorrow night. Not at this restaurant. Somewhere else. I want to talk to you for 2 hours. You can bring a friend. You can bring a brick in your purse. You can tell someone exactly where you'll be and exactly what time you expect to leave. You can keep your phone in your hand the entire time. I will pay for a driver to take you there and back. I will never touch you. At the end of 2 hours, if you want to walk away from me and never see me again, you walk away. And I'll make sure your life here gets easier, quieter, whatever you need, and you'll never see me again. And if I don't walk away? Something moved behind his eyes. Then we have another dinner. That's a hell of a sales pitch. I'm not good at selling things. You seem like you're pretty good at getting what you want. Those aren't the same thing. She stared at him. Why me? She said. Out of every woman in the world. Why the girl crying outside the cheap restaurant at 2 a.m? There are prettier women, Adrian. There are women with less baggage. Don't tell me I'm special. Don't insult me. I wasn't going to. Then why? Because you didn't look broken, he said. You look tired. There's a difference, and most people don't see it. Broken women look surprised when things go badly. You didn't. You looked like a woman who had been told her whole life that nothing would ever be given to her, and who had already decided to keep going anyway. That kind of... He stopped. He almost said a word and changed his mind. That kind of person, Lena, that's rarer than you think. Her eyes stung. She hated herself for it. She hated that it worked on her. She hated that she could feel the blood moving in her face and the pulse going in her neck, and she hated most of all that she didn't hate him, not the way she should have, not the way every voice in her head was telling her she had to. I have to get back to work, she said. Tomorrow night. I didn't say yes. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. If you want to come, there'll be a black car outside the laundromat at 7:45. Andreas's place, upstairs. If you don't come down, the car leaves. I'll never bother you again. You keep the money either way. You shouldn't know where I live. I know. Then why did you tell me you know? Because I didn't want to lie to you. She stood up. This time her legs worked. Don't come back to this restaurant, she said. I won't. And don't send anyone to watch me. I wasn't going to. I mean it, Adrian. I hear you, Lena. She walked away from the table. She did not look back. She went into the kitchen and she stood in front of the walk-in freezer for 30 seconds with her hand on the handle, because the cold coming out of the vent was the only thing she could feel that wasn't her own blood. And she breathed in and out, until Mama Sofia came up behind her and put a heavy hand on her shoulder and said, Cariño, sit. You're the color of milk. Lena didn't sit. I need 5 minutes. I need the bathroom. Go. I'll take your tables. She went. In the bathroom, she locked the door and put her back against it and slid down until she was sitting on the tile. She took the $400 bills out of the front pocket of her apron and spread them on the floor in front of her and looked at them like they were a puzzle. They were real. Of course they were real. She sat there and she did the math she had been doing for 19 months. $400 meant she was $87 short of a ticket home. Not 487, 87. She could go home. She could go home in 3 weeks. She could get on a plane and leave this island and leave Dimitri and leave Mama Sofia and leave the man in the black suit and never have to find out what he was or what he wanted or what the word yet was going to turn into in his mouth. She should. She pressed her forehead against her knees and she breathed, and she knew, with a clarity that frightened her, that she was not going to. I'd see. The lunch rush hit. She worked through it on autopilot. She carried plates and she smiled at strangers, and she dropped a glass and Dimitri yelled, and Mama Sofia yelled back at Dimitri on her behalf, which had never happened before. And by 3 o'clock the place had mostly emptied out, and Lena was sitting on an upturned milk crate behind the kitchen, eating cold fish out of a plastic container and staring at the harbor. The harbor was beautiful. That was the cruel part of the island. No matter how bad your day was, the water was still turquoise and the boats were still white, and the sky was still the kind of blue that people came from 4 countries to look at. It made your problems feel both larger and smaller at the same time. Smaller because who had the right to be miserable in front of a view like that? Larger because the view didn't help you pay rent. Mama Sofia came out the back door with 2 cigarettes, and she handed one to Lena without asking, even though Lena had quit 8 months ago. Lena took it. They smoked in silence for a while. The man in the suit, Mama Sofia said eventually. You took his money. How do you know? I saw it on the table when I cleared it. 4 notes. Americano, big numbers. You're not going to tell Dimitri. Cariño, please. I've been lifting off that man for 15 years. Lena laughed, and it surprised her, a short bark that hurt somewhere in her chest. He asked me to dinner. Oh no. I didn't say yes. You didn't say no. No. Mama Sofia exhaled a long plume of smoke and looked out at the harbor. She was from somewhere further south, somewhere Lena had never asked about. She had hands like worn leather and a mouth that got hard around certain subjects, and she'd been kind to Lena in small, practical ways for 14 months. An extra plate of food here, a 20 slipped into an apron pocket there, the kind of kindness that didn't make speeches about itself. Listen to me, Mama Sofia said, not looking at her. I don't know that man, but I know his kind of man, you understand? I know his kind. The suit, the hands, the walking in and out of a room like he owns the floor. I grew up around men who looked like that. And I will tell you something, cariño, and you can listen or you cannot listen. That is up to you. Okay? Men like that? The careful ones. The quiet ones. The ones who know your name before you tell them. They are not dangerous the way the loud ones are dangerous. The loud ones, they break a glass, they hit a waitress, the police come, it's over. The quiet ones, they don't break anything that shows. They take pieces of you, small pieces, over a long time. And you don't know they're taking them until one morning you wake up and you don't remember who you were before you met them. Lena looked at her cigarette. It had almost burned down to her fingers. He said he wouldn't touch me. Of course he did. He offered me a driver. He said I could bring a friend. He said I could leave whenever I wanted. Of course he did, cariño. Sofia, I need the money. Mama Sofia looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in the conversation. Her eyes were very dark and very tired. I know you do, she said. That's the part that kills me. They were quiet for a while. Is he? Lena started and stopped. Do you think he's? I don't know what he is. But you have a guess. Mama Sofia ground out her cigarette against the wall of the restaurant. She didn't throw it away. She tucked the stub into the pocket of her apron, a habit from wherever she was from a place where you didn't leave your cigarettes where the police could find them. I have a guess, she said. I'm not going to tell you what it is. Why not? Because if I'm wrong, I've ruined a rich man for you. And if I'm right, you'll hear it from his own mouth soon enough. And no mamacita you barely know is going to be able to talk you out of it. So I'm going to say one thing, and then I'm going to stop. Okay? Mama Sofia turned to face her. If you go tomorrow night, you keep your phone in your hand, you tell me where you're going, you tell me when you expect to be back. And if you don't come back by the time you said, I call everyone I know on this island, cariño, and you would be surprised who I know. You understand? Lena's throat closed up. Yeah. Say it. I understand. Good. Mama Sofia reached out and put a hand against Lena's cheek. Her palm was rough and warm. You're young, she said. You forget that. You work like a horse, and you've lost your mother and you think you're old. But you're young, Lena. You have a lot of mistakes left to make. Just try to make the kind you come back from. And then she went back into the kitchen and started yelling at Dimitri about the shrimp, and the moment was over. That night, Lena walked the 2 miles home. She walked slowly. The air had cooled off into something that was almost pleasant, and the island's stray cats wound themselves around her ankles at every alley, and she gave one of them a piece of bread she'd stolen from the kitchen. She thought about the money. She thought about the plane ticket. She thought about her mother, and the last thing her mother had said to her, which was, "Sweetheart, don't you let them eat you alive." Her mother had said it about Pittsburgh, about the office where Lena had worked, about the boyfriend and the landlord and the boss who'd passed her over. Her mother had said it about a life. Don't you let them eat you alive. She thought about Adrian Voss's hands folded on the table, the broken knuckles of the right one, the ring with the dark stone. She thought about the word chosen. Nobody had ever chosen her for anything. She'd been picked last, or not picked, or tolerated, or overlooked. She had been the middle of the class girl, the bridesmaid if they needed one girl, the backup on the group project. She had spent 26 years understanding, very clearly and without any particular bitterness, that she was not the kind of woman the world wrote stories about. And a man in a $5,000 suit had walked into the Blue Anchor and laid $400 American on her table and said, "You didn't look broken. You looked tired," and she could not stop. stopped turning the sentence over in her hands. When she got to the laundromat, she climbed the outside staircase to her rented room above it. Andreas, her landlord, was sitting on the bottom step smoking. He grunted at her. She grunted back. She unlocked her door and stepped inside. The room was small. A single bed, a hot plate, a sink, a window that looked over the alley where the tourists threw up at night. Her suitcase in the corner, still half-packed, had been half-packed since the day she arrived. She had not trusted, not for one single day in 14 months, that she was going to stay. She sat on the edge of the bed. She took the $400 out of her apron pocket and smoothed the bills flat on her knee, one after another, and put them in the coffee tin she kept on the windowsill, behind the curtain, where Andreas wouldn't find them if he came in to check the pipes, the way he sometimes did. She counted the tin. $812. Plus the $400. $1,212. A plane ticket. Plus a little extra. She sat for a long time. Then she took her phone off the charger and she typed a message to Mama Sophia's number, which she had in her contacts as Sophia Blue Anchor, and she stared at it for another long time. And then she wrote, "Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. A car is picking me up outside Andreas's. I'll text you where we go when I know. If I don't text you by midnight, start calling." She pressed send before she could think about it. The reply came back in less than a minute.
Dios mío. Be smart, cariño. I will be waiting. My phone is on.
Lena put the phone face down on the bed. She looked at her suitcase in the corner. Half-packed. Always half-packed. Through the thin wall, she could hear Andreas's television, a soccer game, a man shouting in a language she didn't speak. She could hear a motorbike going past on the street below. She could hear the laundromat downstairs cycling through a final dry. 26 years, she thought. 26 years of being invisible. 26 years of being tired instead of broken. 26 years of watching other women be the kind of women men in black suits paid $400 just to sit across from. Somewhere on this island, in a villa she had never seen, past a lighthouse she had never walked to, Adrian Voss was doing something, eating dinner, making a phone call, standing at a window with a glass of something expensive. She didn't know. She would never know, most of her life, what that kind of man did with his evenings. She closed her eyes. Tomorrow night at 7:45 there was going to be a black car outside the laundromat, and Lena Carter was going to walk downstairs and get into it. She knew this the way you know weather. She knew it without deciding it. She had already decided it, maybe months ago, maybe the night she'd sat on the curb and cried and not known he was watching. She had decided it the moment his eyes had stopped on her across the restaurant, and she had felt, for the first time in a life that had never asked her opinion about anything, that she had been seen. Her mother would have been furious. Her mother had also died of cancer in a hospital bed in a town that had never given her a damn thing and had whispered, "Don't you let them eat you alive." And Lena didn't know anymore what that meant. She didn't know if it meant stay small and stay safe or if it meant refuse to be nothing. She turned off the light. She lay down on the narrow bed in the narrow room above the laundromat, in the clothes she'd worked all day in, and she listened to the soccer game through the wall, and she thought about a black car, and a man with broken knuckles, and $400 sitting in a coffee tin on her windowsill. She did not sleep for a long time, and somewhere on the other side of St. Calliope Island, past the old lighthouse, in a white villa with its shutters open to the sea, Adrian Voss sat at a long table by himself and ate nothing, and watched the dark water, and thought about a waitress who had said his name like it was a slap, and smiled for the first time in a year at no one at all. She woke at 5 the way she always did before the alarm because her body had given up on trusting alarms a long time ago. The room was gray. The laundromat hadn't started its first cycle yet. She lay on her back for a minute and listened to her own heart and thought, tonight. Just the one word. Tonight. And then she got up and pulled on the same black apron and the same black shirt and walked the 2 miles down to the harbor in the half-light and did not think about the black car again until she had to. Dmitri was in an unusually good mood, which meant something was wrong. He was humming. He never hummed. He poured her a coffee without being asked and set it on the counter and said, "You look like hell, Carter. Drink." "Thanks." "Don't thank me. I need you sharp today. Tourist bus coming at 11. 40 heads." 40? 40. Sophia's making the paella. You and Nikos take the floor. I'll run drinks. Nobody dies, everybody tips. We all go home happy, yes? Yes, Dmitri. He slapped the counter and walked away whistling. Lena drank the coffee. It was burned. It was always burned. She had never once in 14 months complained about the coffee because the first time she'd tried, he'd told her that girls who complained about free coffee could pay for it, and she had shut up. She worked through the morning like a woman walking underwater. She carried plates and poured wine and took orders and smiled, and none of it touched her. Somewhere underneath the shirt and the apron and the smile, a clock was ticking towards 7:45. She could hear it. She could feel it pulling on her skin. At 11, the bus came. 40 Germans in pastel shirts and sensible shoes, all of them red across the nose, all of them very cheerful, all of them wanting things in English slow enough to make her teeth hurt. She moved plates. She refilled glasses. A man pinched her elbow. Not hard, affectionate, the way an uncle might. And his wife apologized in German that Lena didn't understand, and she smiled and said it was fine, and kept walking. At 12:30, Nikos dropped a tray and broke 11 plates, and Dmitri screamed at him in the kitchen for 10 full minutes while Mama Sofia cooked through it like a woman who had heard every scream a man had to offer and was done pretending any of them meant anything. At 2, the bus left. The restaurant was wrecked. Lena sat on the milk crate out back with a glass of water and shook. Mama Sofia came out and looked at her and said nothing for a while. "You're going tonight," she said eventually. It wasn't a question. "Yeah. You told me you were going before you told yourself. I know. You want me to come." Lena looked up at her, surprised. "What?" I said, "You want me to come. I don't mean to dinner. I mean, I sit across the street in my cousin's car, and I watch the door of whatever restaurant he takes you to, and I wait. That is what I mean. You say the word, cariño, and I bring my cousin, and we wait." Lena's throat did something embarrassing. I would. I am not offering to be your mother. Your mother is gone, and I am not her, and I would not insult her. I am offering to be the woman in the car across the street. That is a different kind of woman. Every woman should have one. Lena wiped her face with the back of her hand. She was surprised to find it wet. "No," she said. "No, He said it's on the east side past the marina. I'll text you the address when we get there. If something feels wrong, I'll leave. I'll take a cab. I have money now." "You have money now." "I have money now." Mama Sofia nodded slowly. "That is the most expensive sentence a woman ever says, cariño." "What does that mean?" "Nothing. Go. Finish your shift. Go home. Take a shower. Wear the green dress." "I don't have a green dress." "Then wear whatever you have." "But cariño, wear it like it's yours, not like you borrowed it from a better life." She got off at 6. Dmitri let her go early, which was another thing that had never happened, and she should have been suspicious, but she wasn't, because she was already somewhere else in her head. She walked home. She climbed the staircase. She stood in the middle of her small room and stared into the half-open suitcase in the corner for a long time before she remembered why she was home. She showered in water that came out lukewarm on the best day. She washed her hair with cheap shampoo that smelled like coconut and nothing else. She stood in front of the cracked mirror above the sink and looked at her own face and saw a woman she didn't quite know. She didn't own a green dress. She didn't own many dresses at all. She had a black one she'd bought for her mother's funeral and hadn't worn since. And there was something obscene about the idea of wearing that dress to sit across a table from Adrian Voss, so she didn't. She had a cream-colored sundress from the summer before, washed thin, a little small in the shoulders. She put it on. She brushed her hair out and left it down for the first time in months. It fell past her collarbone, and she looked at the woman in the mirror, and the woman in the mirror looked back at her, young, a little frightened, a little beautiful in a way Lena had never allowed herself to see. She put on a thin silver chain that had been her mother's. That was all the jewelry she owned. She took $200 out of the coffee tin and folded it into her purse in the zipped inside pocket so that if she needed to leave in the middle of a meal and get a cab and check into a hotel, she could. The rest of the money stayed in the tin. She did not quite trust the room. She did not quite trust anything. At 7:40, she went downstairs. Andreas was on the bottom step again, smoking again, the way he was every night, as if the stair were a bar stool and he the only patron. He looked her up and down. "You look nice." "Thank you." "Got a date?" Yeah. Is he paying for it? Goodbye, Andreas. You're 3 days short on rent, Carter. I'll pay you Friday. You said Friday 2 Fridays ago. I'll pay you this Friday, Andreas. He spat. She stepped around him. The street was empty except for the cats and the smell of cooking fish from someone's open window and the dry electric sound of the cicadas in the palm along the curb. She stood on the sidewalk and she waited. At 7:44, a black car pulled around the corner. It was not what she had expected. She had expected something Hollywood, long, shining, absurd. This was not that. This was a plain, dark sedan with tinted windows, German, the kind of car that did not have a chrome letter on the grille because it didn't need one. It was the car equivalent of Adrian Voss's suit. It announced nothing. It only looked expensive if you knew what you were looking at. The driver got out. He was a man in his 40s, short-cropped hair going gray, navy blue shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbow. The rolled sleeves showed forearms that had been working forearms at some point. Not a bouncer's, not a gym rat's. Functional. The forearms of a man who had carried things for a living. He had a face that wasn't friendly and wasn't unfriendly. Just a face that had been put into service a long time ago and had stopped expressing its owner's feelings because its owner's feelings weren't relevant to the job. Miss Carter. Yes. My name is Polly. I'll be driving you tonight. I work for Mr. Voss. Do you want to see identification? Yes. He held out a laminated card. It looked like a real card, though she had no idea what a real card of whatever kind this was supposed to be looked like. She nodded because it seemed like the thing to do. He put the card back into his breast pocket. If at any time during the evening you would like to leave, you tell me, and I drive you home. You don't need Mr. Voss's permission. Okay. My phone number is in the cup holder on a card. If I'm not in the car when you come out of the restaurant, you call me, and I am there inside 90 seconds. Do you understand? Yes. Good. Please. He opened the back door. She stood there for one more second. She thought, this is the moment. This is where I turn around. She looked at Andreas up on the stair, watching her with his little wet eyes, smoking. She looked at the cats. She looked at the black car. She got in. The car smelled like clean leather and some kind of faint wood smoke cologne that wasn't Polly's because Polly didn't smell like anything. It smelled like his car, even though he wasn't in it. Polly slid in up front. The doors clicked locked. For a second, her stomach clenched, and Polly, without looking back, said, "Door locks are driver-controlled in this model, miss. I lock them in traffic. You can unlock your door from your side at any time. If you press the black button above the window now, you'll hear it release." She pressed the button. The door unlocked. She pressed it again. It locked. It was such a small thing. She felt her shoulders come down half an inch. Thank you. Of course. They drove. The island at dusk was the kind of pretty that would have made her eyes sting if her eyes hadn't already been on the edge of stinging for an entirely different reason. Pink sky going violet. Whitewashed houses leaning into each other down the narrow streets. Old women out on their front steps with fans. Boys kicking a soccer ball against a garage door. A cat on a stone wall. The air smelled like grilled meat and diesel and the sea and jasmine from some garden she couldn't see. They left the town. The road climbed. The headlights cut through a darkness that got bigger and bigger the further they went from the harbor. She thought, for a second, that he was taking her all the way out past the lighthouse to his villa, and she felt her heart kick, and then the car turned down a narrow lane she hadn't known was there, and came out at a terrace restaurant on a cliff above the sea. The restaurant had no sign. That was the first thing she noticed. It just sat there, low, white-walled, a terrace of stone tables under a canopy of bougainvillea, and a staff member in a white shirt standing in the drive waiting for their car like they'd been watching for it. Which, she realized, they had been. "We're here, miss." "Thank you, Polly." "I'll be in the lot across the road. Your driver card is in your purse?" "Yes." "Good. Take your time." She got out. Her legs held. She had wondered if they would. The staff member nodded at her, Miss Carter, and led her, not through the front of the restaurant, but around the side, along a stone path lit by small bronze lanterns half buried in the grass, to a terrace with one table on it. One table. Not one of many. One. He had taken the entire terrace. Adrian Voss was already standing beside it. He was in black again, different suit, no tie this time, white shirt open at the collar. The scar at his throat was more visible without the tie. He watched her walk toward him with the expression of a man watching weather come in. Lena. Adrian. You came. I came. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't. He pulled out her chair. She sat. He sat opposite. The staff member produced water and disappeared. The sea was enormous below them, a dark plate going black as the last of the light went out of the sky, and a single ferry was crossing in the far distance with all its little lights on. Before we talk, he said, I want to tell you something. I don't know if I said it yesterday in a way that reached you. Okay. If at any point tonight you want to leave, you stand up and you leave. You don't finish your sentence. You don't finish your drink. You don't explain yourself. Paulie is across the road. He'll have you back at your door in 20 minutes. That's not a performance. That's a fact. I know, he told me. Good. Adrian. Yes. I don't want you to say anything nice to me tonight. He tilted his head. I don't know what you mean. I mean, I came here because yesterday you said one thing to me and it did something to me. And I've spent 24 hours being ashamed of the fact that it did something to me. So if you brought me up here to flatter me, I'm going to stand up and go. I want you to talk to me like I'm an adult. I want you to answer my questions. I don't want to be sold to. She surprised herself. Her voice had come out steady. He looked at her for a long moment. Something in his face shifted, very slightly, in a direction she couldn't read. All right, he said. Good. Then ask. She opened her mouth. She didn't know where to start. She picked the smallest one. What do you do? That's a big question, actually. Start anywhere. He was quiet. He turned his wine glass a quarter turn. She noticed again the knuckles on his right hand. I run a business, he said. Several businesses. Some of them are legitimate. Some of them are in industries where the word legitimate doesn't really apply, one way or the other. I own property in 11 countries. I employ about 400 people directly, and many more through contractors. I am, in a measurable sense, very wealthy. In a less measurable sense, I have a reputation among a certain kind of person that is useful to me. That reputation is the reason you have not heard of me. Men in my position either become famous, which is stupid and short, or they become invisible, which is intelligent and long. I chose the second a long time ago. Mensovet. She listened. What kind of businesses, Adrian? What kind do you think? Don't turn it back on me. He inclined his head, conceding. Shipping, construction, private security, 2 casinos, one of which is in the Mediterranean and one of which is not, a holding company that owns, among other things, a vineyard and a hotel chain. That's the part I can write down on a tax return. And the part you can't. The part I can't is older, and it's how I started. And it's the reason everything I said before exists. Tell me. Are you sure? I'm sure. He held her eyes. His eyes were the color of something that had been wet for a long time and dried. Gray, she thought, or brown with too much gray in it. I grew up in a city on the East Coast, he said, in a neighborhood that doesn't exist anymore, because the people who ran it are dead or in prison or rich enough to have moved somewhere better. My father worked for a man. My father was not a good man. He was, however, reliable, and reliability in that world is a kind of currency. When I was 14, my father died in a way that made the newspapers for exactly 2 days. When I was 15, I started working for the same man my father had worked for. When I was 22, I worked for a different man. When I was 30, I worked for myself. Do you understand what I'm telling you? I think so. Say it. You're what my mother would have called a criminal, Adrian. He didn't flinch. That word is accurate and incomplete, he said. But yes. Her hands were flat on the table. She looked at them. She looked at her mother's chain, resting against the thin cotton of the cream dress. She thought distantly that her mother would never understand the sentence that had just happened in her life. And you came to an island in the middle of nowhere because I needed a month where nobody knew where I was. And you saw me crying outside a restaurant. And I saw you crying outside a restaurant. And you had me investigated. Yes. Why? I told you I don't know. Say something better than that, please. He sat back. For a long time he didn't speak. The sea moved. The ferry crossed another degree of the horizon. Somewhere far off a dog was barking, and somewhere closer someone was playing a guitar, badly, and stopping and starting over. In the life I live, he said finally, most people are one of three things to me. They work for me, they want something from me, or they are afraid of me. That's it. That's the whole list. I haven't sat in a room with a person who didn't fit one of those three columns in. I couldn't tell you, Lena. 10 years. More. Maybe more. Okay. I walked past a woman on a curb at 2 in the morning. She wasn't working for me. She didn't want anything from me. She didn't know enough about me to be afraid of me. She was just a person. Crying. Alone. And I stood on the other side of the street and I watched her for 8 minutes. And in that 8 minutes, I felt something I hadn't felt in so long. I didn't have a word for it anymore. It wasn't pity. I want to be very clear. It wasn't pity. What was it? Recognition. She looked at him. Recognition of what? Of tired, he said. I recognize tired. The particular kind, the kind where you've stopped expecting anyone to come get you. I know that kind. I have been that tired. Her eyes stung. She hated him for it. And you had me investigated because you saw yourself in me. I had you investigated because I was not going to walk back to my villa at 3 in the morning and pretend I hadn't seen you. That was the choice. Walk away and forget. Or learn who you were. I don't walk away, Lena. I have never learned how. She was quiet. The staff member came back. Adrian shook his head once, a small gesture, and the staff member disappeared again. You're scaring me, she said. I know. You're not scaring me the right way. I know that too. They ate after a while. She didn't remember choosing what she ate. Something with fish, something with lemon, bread that came warm in a cloth. She ate a few bites. He ate less. They drank wine, a white wine that tasted like green apples in cold stone. And she only had one glass because she had told Mama Sofia she would keep her head on straight and because something in her was still standing guard at the door of her own mind. He did not ask her to tell him about herself. That was the strangest part. He already knew. He already knew about Millbrook and the dental office and the library and Dimitri and Andreas. He already knew about her mother, which was the part that made her dangerous to him, though she didn't understand it yet. He didn't ask her to perform her life for him. He asked her what she thought of the fish. It's good. It's overcooked. A little. I'll tell them. Please don't. Why? Because I work in a restaurant, Adrian. I know what happens when a man in a suit tells the kitchen something's overcooked. Somebody loses a shift. I don't want to be the reason somebody loses a shift. He considered her for a long time. Noted, he said. Thank you. You've never lost a shift over a fish? I've lost a shift over a wine glass. That sounds like a story. She told him. Not all of it. The bones of it. The 12-euro glass. The night on the curb. It was the first time she had told the story out loud, and hearing it come out of her own mouth was like hearing somebody else's life. He did not react while she told it. He watched her face. When she was done, he said, Which night? What? Which night? The curb. Which night was that? A Tuesday. Last 2 weeks ago. The 22nd. Yes. He nodded once. He said nothing else. She would understand months later that at some point between that conversation and the morning after, Dimitri Marcos had begun to have a very bad year quietly in ways he never connected to a waitress or a man in a black suit. In the moment, she only noticed that Adrian had taken a breath and held it and let it out. You don't like him, he said. I don't like anybody I work for. I like Sofia. The cook. Yes. The woman who would have called every person she knows on this island if you didn't come home tonight. How do you know that? I guessed. She seems like that sort of woman. I'm glad she is. You're glad. Lena, I want you to have a person in the car across the street. I want you to have a person who would make the phone calls. You understand what I'm telling you. I want you to be careful with me. I want that more than I want anything else tonight. Why? Because if you aren't careful with me, this ends in a bad way. and I've decided I don't want this to end in a bad way." He said it like he was describing an investment, like he was telling her he'd decided not to sell a stock. And somehow, for reasons she could not defend even to herself, that was the sentence that made her believe he meant it. They talked for 2 hours. He asked her things, real things, about her mother, about Millbrook, about the dental office, and the awful boyfriend, and she caught herself telling him more than she had told anyone since she'd stepped off the plane on St. Calliope. He did not interrupt. He was an unnervingly good listener. He was the kind of listener who made you realize halfway through an answer that every other person you'd ever talked to had been waiting for you to stop talking so they could say the next thing, and that he was not. He was just listening, saving it, putting it somewhere. It was flattering in a way that felt like being undressed. She made herself remember that once, twice, 3 times. This is the part he's good at. This is the part that works on women. This is how the quiet ones take the pieces. Don't forget. Don't forget. She did not forget. And she still talked. He talked less. And when he did, it was careful, measured, a man giving her a map of himself with large blank places on it where the danger was. He told her he'd been married once, a long time ago, and that it had ended in a way he would not describe, and that he had not tried again. He told her about a brother in a city in Texas who didn't know what Adrian did, and to whom Adrian sent money twice a year through a lawyer. He told her about a house in the south of France that he'd owned for 12 years and had slept in twice. He told her he had not taken a vacation in his life, and did not know, truly did not know, what he would do with one if he had it. "What do you do," she said, "when you aren't working?" "I don't understand the question." "When you aren't running, all of it, the business, the 400 people, the whatever else. What do you do at night?" "I work at night." "On weekends?" "I work on weekends." "Adrian." "Lena, what do you do for pleasure?" He was quiet for a very long time. "I used to read," he said finally. "I used to read a lot. I stopped about 6 years ago. I don't remember exactly when." "Why did you stop?" "Because at some point I realized I'd been reading the same page of a book for an hour and not taking it in, and it occurred to me that I was performing reading for myself as a kind of proof that I was still a person, and I didn't want to perform anymore, so I stopped." "That's the saddest thing anyone has ever said to me." "Yes," he said. "I know." She looked at him. "You're lonely," she said. Adrian, you are lonely in a way I don't know what to do with. I'm not sure I've ever met anyone this lonely." He didn't answer. She said quieter, "That's not a trick, is it? That's not a thing you do to women." "No." "You swear." "I swear on something I don't have anymore." "What?" "It doesn't matter. I swear, Lena, it isn't a trick." She looked down at her plate. Her eyes were wet. She was furious about it. "I think you're dangerous," she said. "I think you are exactly as dangerous as I thought you were yesterday. I don't think anything you've told me tonight has made you less dangerous." "Good." "Stop saying good." "I mean it. If you had sat here tonight and decided I was safe, I would have been disappointed in you. I don't want you to think I'm safe. I'm not." "Then why am I still sitting here?" "I don't know. I've been asking myself the same question." At some point it got late. The ferry had crossed. The sea had gone from dark blue to black. The bougainvillea above them rustled in a breeze that smelled like salt and warm stone. The staff brought coffee. She drank a sip and put it down. Her hands were, she realized, steady. They had not been steady at the start of the meal, and they were steady now, and she wasn't sure what that meant. "I want to ask you something," she said. "Ask?" "Yesterday you said, you used the word yet. You said you didn't want anything from me yet." "I remember. I've been thinking about that word for a day." "I know. What did you mean?" He looked at her for a long time. He set his hand on the table, palm down, and then he spread his fingers very slowly, like a man setting something down that he was afraid he would drop. "I meant," he said, "that I don't know what I want from you. I meant that the thing I want is not a thing I can say yet, because I don't know its shape. I meant that I know myself well enough to know that I am going to want something, and I didn't want to lie to you and tell you I wasn't. That's not, I know. That's a terrifying thing to say to a woman, Adrian.
I know it is. I said it anyway. She sat with it. She sat with it a long time.
The staff member appeared at the edge of the terrace. Adrian lifted 2 fingers. The staff member disappeared. I want to ask you one thing, he said, and then I'll drive you home. Polly will drive you home. I'll stay here. Okay? Will you have dinner with me again? That's it. That's it. No. No yet. This time. No yet. Dinner. Another night. This week. Next week. Whenever you want. You tell Polly when. I'll be where you say. I'll leave when you tell me to leave. I'll answer any question you ask me, including the ones you're going to think of in the next 3 days that you haven't thought of yet. And if I say no, then Polly drives you home and you never see me again. That part doesn't change, Lena. That part was never going to change. She looked at him. She thought about her mother. She thought about 26 years of being invisible. She thought about the coffee tin and the half-packed suitcase and the plane ticket and the life she was supposed to be going back to and what it had waiting for it, which was nothing, which was another dental office and another boyfriend who would want to know if she'd paid the cable bill and another 26 years of being tired and not broken. She thought about walking away from this table and spending the rest of her life wondering what she had walked away from. She thought about her mother saying, "Don't you let them eat you alive." She thought about Mama Sofia saying, "They don't break anything that shows." She opened her mouth, and she didn't know what was going to come out of it until it did. "Yes," she said. Ja. Afterwards, she couldn't remember getting up from the table. She remembered his hand, briefly, at her elbow, to steady her on the stone steps down from the terrace, and then gone again before she could react to it, gone so fast it almost hadn't happened. She remembered the black car pulling up. She remembered Polly opening the back door without a word. She remembered Adrian standing in the drive with his hands at his sides, not waving, not smiling, just watching. A man watching a thing he had decided on. Polly got in the front. The car pulled away down the lane. In the side mirror, she watched Adrian Voss's figure get smaller and smaller and then disappear behind the bougainvillea, and she sat very still and listened to her own heart. "Miss Carter." "Yes." "How was your evening, if I may ask?" "It was... I don't know how it was, Polly." "That's often the answer, in my experience." She almost laughed. She didn't quite have it in her. "Polly." "Yes, miss." "How long have you worked for him?" A pause. She watched his eyes in the rearview mirror. He was thinking about whether to answer. 19 years, he said. 19 years? Yes. Is he a good man? Another pause. A longer one this time. Outside the window, the dark shapes of the olive trees went by, and beyond them the sea, and beyond that nothing. "He is not a good man, miss," Polly said. "I would not insult you by saying he is. He is a man who keeps his word. That is a different thing. In my experience, it is the more useful thing for a person in your position." "What position is that, Polly?" "The position of a person he has decided is his." She did not answer. She watched the road. "Has he done this before?" she said finally. "Done what, miss?" "Sent a car for a woman he'd investigated. Had dinner alone with her on a terrace he'd rented for the night. Told her he'd drive her home whenever she wanted." The pause that came then was the longest one yet. Polly drove 3 full curves of the cliff road before he spoke. "No, miss," he said. "He has not." She felt her chest do something complicated. "Polly." "Yes, miss. If I asked you to turn the car around and take me straight to the airport tonight and never come back to my apartment, would you do it?" "Yes, miss." "Even though you work for him?" "Yes, miss. Those are my instructions." "His instructions?" "Yes." "He told you that?" "He told me that this afternoon, before I came to pick you up. He was very specific, miss." She put her face into her hands. She did not cry. She just put her face in her hands for a while, and Polly drove, and did not say anything to her, the way a professional man does not say anything to a woman who needs a minute. When she lifted her head, she said, "Take me home, please, Polly." "Yes, miss." He pulled up outside the laundromat at 10 past midnight. Andreas was no longer on the step. The street was empty. A single street lamp buzzed above the corner. The air had finally cooled. Polly got out. He opened her door. He walked her to the bottom of the staircase. "Miss Carter?" Yes. My card is in your purse. Mr. Voss's number is not. If you want to reach him, you call me, and I reach him. That is the way he wants it. You do not have to keep that card if you don't want it. You can throw it away tonight, or tomorrow, or next week. He understands. Okay. Good night, miss. Good night, Polly. He got back in the car. The car pulled away. She stood on the street for a minute. Then she climbed the stairs. The room was exactly as she had left it. The suitcase half packed in the corner, the coffee tin on the windowsill, her cheap shampoo bottle by the sink, her mother's photograph in the cracked frame on the little table by the bed. She sat on the bed. She did not turn on the light. She looked at the photograph in the dark. Diane Carter, 35 years old, leaning against the hood of a maroon Oldsmobile that had died before Lena was born, laughing at something someone off camera was saying, a cigarette in her hand and the sun in her hair. Don't you let them eat you alive. Mama, Lena said, out loud, into the dark, for the first time in months. Mama, I don't know if I'm doing what you meant or the opposite of what you meant. I genuinely don't. I'm sorry. Her mother didn't answer because the dead don't. But the photograph looked back at her anyway with that laughing mouth and those eyes that had known exactly how the world worked. And somewhere, somehow, Lena thought she understood what her mother would have said. Not the clean answer, not the mother of a bride answer, the needlepoint answer, the answer you could put on a coffee mug. The real answer. The answer Diane Carter would have given at 1 in the morning after her second whiskey, when she was tired, when she was honest. Baby, if a man like that walks into your life, you walk in with your eyes open. You do not lie to yourself about what he is. You do not lie to yourself about what you are. You do not pretend it's love when it's hunger. You do not pretend it's safe when it isn't. And if you get in his car anyway, and I am not saying you should, I am not saying that, I am not, you make sure that every time, baby, you could have gotten out of the car. That is the only thing that separates a woman from a kept thing. That you could have gotten out every time. Lena put her face against her knees. She sat like that for a long time. When she finally lay down on top of the blanket in her cream dress, with her mother's chain still around her neck, she was more tired than she had been in her life. But she slept, and she slept deep, and she slept without dreams. And she woke at 5 the way she always did, because her body had given up on trusting alarms a long time ago. And she went downstairs and walked the 2 miles to the Blue Anchor, and she worked her shift, and Dmitri yelled at her about a broken saucer, and Mama Sofia took one look at her face and asked her nothing, and squeezed her shoulder once, hard. And that was their whole conversation about it. And at 6 in the evening, Lena walked home and climbed the staircase, and opened her purse, and took out the small white card that Polly had left in the cup holder. And she looked at it for a long time. And she did not throw it away. She did not call the number for 4 days. 4 days was the exact length of time it took Lena Carter to stop lying to herself about whether she was going to call it. On the first morning, she told herself she was going to throw the card away and forget his face and spend the $400 on a plane ticket and leave the island by Sunday. She even took the card out of her purse and held it over the little wire wastebasket by the sink and stood there and didn't drop it. On the second morning, she told herself she'd call and politely decline, and she practiced the sentence in the mirror while she brushed her teeth. Polly, please tell Mr. Voss I've thought about it, and I don't think this is something I should do. And she put the card back in her purse and went to work and didn't call. On the third morning, she didn't tell herself anything at all, which was worse because it meant she had already decided and was just waiting for her body to catch up. On the fourth morning, she picked up her phone at 11:15 while she was behind the Blue Anchor on her smoke break with Mama Sofia, and she dialed the number. Polly picked up on the second ring. Miss Carter. She hadn't said anything yet. He had caller ID. Of course he had caller ID, but it startled her anyway. How did you... Right. How may I help you, miss? I wanted to tell Mr. Voss that the dinner, if he still wants it. He still wants it, miss. Oh. Would tomorrow evening be convenient? Yes. Same arrangement as before. A car at 7:45 at your residence. Yes, please. Yes, miss. I'll tell him. Thank you for calling. He hung up. Lena stood holding the phone to her ear for a full 10 seconds after the line went dead. Mama Sofia watched her from the doorway with a cigarette and a face that said a great many things and chose in the end to say none of them out loud. Cariño, don't. I said nothing. You said it with your face, Sophia. My face is my own. Lena put her phone in her apron pocket. Her hand was shaking, very faintly, in a way she couldn't stop. She pressed her palm flat against her thigh until it stopped. 7:45 tomorrow, she said. Same deal if I don't text you. I will have my phone on. Thank you. Cariño. What? Eat something today, please. You look like a bird. That night, Polly drove her to a restaurant on the other side of the island. A smaller place this time. 3 tables, the other 2 empty. Adrian was already there, already standing when she came in, and this time he crossed the room to meet her and stopped about 3 feet away and kept his hands at his sides, the way a man does when he has trained himself not to reach for a thing. Lena. Hatsai. You came. I called. I know. I was here by 6. Why? Because I didn't know if you'd come, and I didn't want you to walk into an empty restaurant and have to sit at a table and wonder. Adrian. Yes. That's the kind of sentence that's going to get me in trouble. I know. They sat. The food came. He ate a little more this time. She ate less. He told her he'd spent the 4 days in Zurich, and then in a city he wouldn't name, and then on a plane, and then back, and she listened and did not ask what he'd been doing in those cities. She had decided she was not going to ask the questions she didn't want the answers to. She had decided it on the walk down the staircase at 7:40, and she made herself keep the decision. He told her he'd thought about her. He said it plainly, in the middle of a bite of bread, the way a man might say it rained on Tuesday. He said, I thought about you, more than I thought I would. I wanted to tell you that. She looked at her plate. Adrian. Yes. I thought about you too, and I'm not going to tell you how much because I don't trust you not to use it. Fair. Don't agree with me so fast, it's disarming. I know. She half smiled in spite of herself. You're doing it on purpose. I'm not. That's the worst part. I don't know how to do this, Lena. I haven't done this in so long, I don't remember what the rules are. I'm figuring it out in front of you. I'm sorry that's what's happening. I know it's not what women want to hear. Stop apologizing. That's also disarming. All right? Tell me something ugly about yourself. He looked up from his plate. I'm serious, she said. I came here tonight and I still don't know you. I know about the 400 employees and the 11 countries. I don't know you. Tell me something ugly. Something you don't tell women at dinner. He was quiet for a long time. A waiter went by. The kitchen clattered a long way away. I had a man killed last year, he said. She sat very still. I'm going to tell you the whole sentence, he said, because I don't want you to hear it halfway. Last spring, a man who had been working for me for a long time stole from me. He stole from me, and he lied about it, and when I found out, I didn't have him killed right away. I gave him a chance to make it right. He was a man with a family. He didn't take the chance. He made it worse. He tried to have someone on my staff killed to cover it up. That person survived. When that happened, I gave the order. I didn't pull a trigger. I have not personally pulled a trigger in 14 years. But I gave the order, and the order was carried out. And a man who had 3 children is in the ground because I decided he should be. That is the ugliest thing I can tell you about myself at a dinner table, Lena. That is the one I have been sitting with for a year. She put her fork down. Do you regret it? I regret the children. That's not what I asked. I know. Do you regret the order? No. Okay. Okay? I don't know what else to say, Adrian. I asked you for something ugly and you gave me something ugly. I'm not going to sit here and perform horror for you. You told me not to lie to you. I'm not going to. He looked at her for a long time. Something in his face again shifted in a direction she could not name. You're... what? You're not what I expected, Lena. What did you expect? I don't know, something less. You thought you could buy me with attention. He didn't answer that right away. I thought, he said carefully, that I had chosen a tired woman who would be grateful for attention. Yes, that is an honest answer. It's also the answer I'm least proud of. That's a sentence, Adrian. It's the sentence I have for you. She sat with it. She drank a sip of wine. The wine was very good. All his wine was very good. She wondered fleetingly what percentage of the men this dress had seen in its life had been able to afford wine like this, and the answer was 0. And she almost laughed. "Ask me something," she said. "Ask you what?" "Anything. You've been letting me pick all the questions. I don't like it. Ask me something." He thought, "Why did you come back?" "Tonight?" "Tonight." She turned the glass in her fingers. She watched the candle in the middle of the table shiver in a breeze that came from nowhere. "Because I've been invisible my whole life," she said. "And I finally met somebody who sees me. And I know, Adrian, you don't have to tell me, that the reason you see me isn't because I'm special. It's because you're lonely, and I'm new, and I'm the first person in 10 years who didn't want something from you. I know all that. I'm not stupid. But I came back because in the entire time I've known you, you have not lied to me once. And I cannot say that about anyone else in my life. Not my mother, not my boss, not the men I've dated, not my landlord, not one single person. And it turns out being told the truth by a dangerous man is more flattering than being lied to by safe ones. That's my answer. It's not a good one. But you asked." He looked at her over the candle. "That is the best answer anyone has ever given me at a dinner table, Lena Carter." "Don't." "I mean it. I said don't. I'm already here. You don't have to work anymore." "I wasn't working." "Then stop being good at it by accident." He almost laughed. It was the first time she had seen him come close. After that, the evenings stacked up like dominoes. There was the dinner on the cliff, and then the dinner in the small restaurant, and then, 5 days later, a dinner in a place with no name, and a single waiter who called Adrian sir with the kind of care that told her the waiter had been tipped in advance to care. There was an afternoon on a boat, not a yacht, a sailboat, a real one, the kind with ropes that burned your hands if you grabbed them wrong, a thing that surprised her because she had assumed everything about him would be showy, and none of it was. And she sat on the deck in her cream dress, and the salt got in her hair, and he steered with one hand on the tiller and the other at his side, and did not touch her. And at the end of the afternoon, Polly drove her home, and she walked up the stairs to her room and lay face down on the bed and cried for half an hour, and did not know why. There was a lunch at his villa. That was the 6th time she'd seen him, the 2nd week in. The villa was on the west side of the island, past the lighthouse, the way he'd said, up a road she'd never been down, behind a wall she hadn't known existed. It was white. It was quiet. There were 2 men at the gate who did not look like security, and who looked, very exactly, like security, and one of them nodded at her and the other didn't, and Polly drove her into a courtyard with a fountain in it, and the fountain was the only sound. The villa had been built a long time before Adrian had owned it, he told her. He had bought it from an old woman whose children didn't want it. He had not changed very much. He had taken down some curtains and put in better light in the kitchen and otherwise let it be what it had been, which was a house that had grown old the way the island had grown old, slowly, in the sun, with the shutters open, full of the clean smell of stone and rosemary. He cooked lunch for her himself. That was the detail that undid her. He cooked lunch for her himself in a kitchen with copper pots on iron hooks, and he apologized for the eggs, which were too soft, and he apologized for the tomatoes, which had come from his garden and had not ripened the way he'd hoped. And he stood in his kitchen in a white shirt with the cuffs rolled up and the scar at his throat visible, and his hair wet from the shower and his feet bare on the old tile. And she looked at him and she thought, oh no. Clearly, entirely, in the middle of her own chest, she thought, oh no. Not in the way of a woman who has seen a warning, in the way of a woman who has seen a door she is going to walk through anyway. He must have seen something on her face because he stopped. Lena, don't. I wasn't going to say anything. You were looking like you were going to. I was looking like I was going to. I'm sorry. Feed me, Adrian. He fed her. The eggs were too soft. The tomatoes were exactly right. After lunch, he showed her the garden. It was walled and bigger than she'd expected, a long strip running down toward the sea, terraced, with lemons on one end, and rosemary and thyme, and a lavender bed somebody had loved once. He had not loved it himself, he told her. He had paid a gardener. But the gardener was a 70-year-old man from the village who had been tending this garden since he was 12, back when the old woman had owned it, and who had agreed to keep tending it only on the condition that no one changed the lavender. Why the lavender? His wife is buried under it. Lena stopped walking. What? She loved the lavender, the old woman, the previous owner. She let him bury her here when she died years ago. She's under the third row on the left, he tells me. I don't visit. That feels like his. Adrian. What? I don't know what to do with you. You don't have to do anything with me. That's not true. No, it isn't.
They stood in the garden. The sea was a line of blue at the low end of the terrace. A gull went by, very slowly. He did not reach for her. He was so careful with not reaching for her that his not reaching had become the loudest thing in any room they stood in together. She was going to have to be the one to close the distance. She knew that. He knew that. He had arranged it that way on purpose, the way he arranged everything. He would not be accused of having taken her. He would make her take herself to him. And she had decided she was going to do it, and she was only waiting for the right day. And it was killing her a little. How well he had set the trap, and how willingly she was walking into it. It was not that day. That day she went home. Polly drove her. She climbed the staircase. She lay on her bed. She did not cry this time. She stared at the ceiling and watched a gecko make its slow way along the molding, and she felt, for the first time in 2 years, like a woman whose life was happening to her instead of past her. Things began changing at the restaurant in small ways she didn't understand for a long time. The week after the lunch at the villa, Dmitri hired a second waitress, a young girl from the mainland, sullen, efficient, and cut Lena's shifts by a third. She didn't complain because her tips, for reasons she also didn't understand, had gone up. Tourists had started coming into the Blue Anchor who had never come into the Blue Anchor before. Better-dressed tourists. Couples in linen. They ordered the expensive wines and the seafood platter, and they tipped in American cash. And they tipped well, and they did not stay long, and when Lena thanked them, they nodded at her with a kind of formal acknowledgement that felt, in retrospect, like they had been told something in advance. She asked Mama Sofia about it in the second week. Sofia, have you noticed? Noticed what? The tourists, the nice ones, the tips. Mama Sofia did not look at her. She was stirring something in a pot. She stirred it for a long time. I have noticed. Is Dmitri? Dmitri is not bringing in those tourists, cariño. Then who is? Cariño. Sofia. Who do you think? Lena put her hand flat on the wall of the kitchen. He's paying people to come in, to tip me. That is my guess. Yes? That's insane. That's controlling. Sofia, I know what it is, cariño. Why would he do that? Because he doesn't like seeing you tired, and he has decided in his head that he is going to stop you from being tired, and he can't yet tell you to quit because he knows you won't. So, he is making the work easier, quietly, and the only way a man like that knows how, which is with money. I'm going to tell him to stop. Are you? Yes. Are you going to tell him tonight? Lena didn't answer. Cariño, it's all right to not tell him tonight. Is it? It is all right to not tell him tonight and to think for 3 days about whether you want it to stop. You don't have to decide in the kitchen of the Blue Anchor. That is not a decision for here. Lena nodded. She didn't trust her voice. She didn't say anything to Adrian about it that night. She didn't say anything to him about it for the rest of the week. And this was the first small, quiet way that she began to understand what Mama Sofia had meant about men who took the pieces. Because she had been paying attention for something obvious, a demand, a gift, a command. And he had not given her any of those things. He had made her rent a little easier. He had made her work a little quieter. He had made her walk home a little shorter because there was always, now, a dark car somewhere in her peripheral vision. And she did not know if it was Polly, and she did not want to know, and she did not ask. She was getting used to not asking. Every day there was one more question she had decided she did not need the answer to, and she had not noticed for a while that the list was getting longer. On the 18th night, something happened. They had been at a restaurant called something she couldn't remember, on a beach she'd never been to, in the open air. It had rained earlier. The sand was dark. The sea was a darker line beyond it. They had eaten, and they had drunk a little more than usual, and Adrian had laughed. He had laughed
twice, a real laugh, not the half smile. And she had reached across the table at the end of the meal and put her fingers over his knuckles, the broken ones, very lightly. And he had looked at her like a man who had been shot. Lena. Yes. I know. Say something for me, please. What? Say you want this. She looked at him. The candle between them shook in a breeze off the water. His face was, for the first time since she'd met him, a face without any armor on it at all, and she understood, in that second, that this was a face he did not show to other people, and that she was responsible for it now, that whatever she did next was a thing she was going to be responsible for. I want this, she said. Lena, I said it. Say it again. I want this, Adrian. He closed his eyes. He was not a man who closed his eyes. It was the first time she had seen him close his eyes in front of another person. He closed them for maybe 3 seconds. Then he opened them and he said, Thank you. For what? For being the one who said it first. You were going to make me be the one who said it first. Yes? Because you didn't want to. Because I didn't want you to be able to say later that I had talked you into anything. Adrian, yes? I'm going to be able to say that anyway. You know that. I know. I'm saying it now so you can't say I didn't. I'm going to be able to say later that you talked me into this. I don't think it's a lie that I wanted it. But I'm going to be able to say it. And I need you to know that I know that. And that I'm coming into this with my eyes open, and that if you ever try to use the fact that I said I want this tonight as a way to tell me I don't have the right to be angry about something later, I will never forgive you. Not once, not ever. Understood? Understood? Understood, Lena. Say you heard me. I heard you. Good. They looked at each other across the candle. Take me home, she said. To your apartment. No. To mine. Yes. He took a breath. He exhaled it. All right. Don't say anything else right now, Adrian. Don't make a speech. Don't. Just take me home. He didn't say anything else. He paid the bill with a nod. They walked across the wet sand to where Polly was waiting at the top of the beach access. Polly looked at her face, and then at Adrian's face, and then forward, at the windshield, and he did not ask where they were going, because he knew. She sat in the back of the car with her hand in Adrian's hand. Their fingers were laced. Neither of them looked at each other the whole way. That was the detail she would remember for years afterward, when she tried to explain to herself what kind of thing that had been. They held hands in the dark all the way from the beach to the villa, and neither of them looked at each other once, because they both knew that if they looked at each other, they would have to say something. And there was nothing left to say. And whatever was going to happen next was going to happen in its own time, in its own silence. In the morning, she woke alone in a bed that was not her own, in a room with high white ceilings and a pair of old wooden shutters hanging open to a courtyard where a fountain was running. It was very early. The light was blue. Somewhere in the villa, a kettle was whistling and stopped, and somewhere further away, a bird was making the kind of clean, 3-note call that meant morning in a place she had never been in the morning before. There was a robe folded at the foot of the bed. She had not brought a robe. He had had one brought in for her. She did not look at it too closely because she did not want to know if it was new or if it had been waiting in a drawer somewhere. She got up. She put the robe on. She walked barefoot across the cool tile toward the smell of coffee. Adrian was in the kitchen in a pair of dark gray pants and a white t-shirt, and the scar at his throat was clearer in daylight than it had ever been. And he had not shaved, and his hair was wet from a shower, and he had a French press and 2 cups out. And when he saw her, he didn't smile. He looked at her the way a man looks at something he is afraid to believe is still there in the morning. Hi, he said. Hi. I made coffee. I see. You said you liked it black. I do. Sit. She sat. He poured. He pushed a cup across to her. His hand, she noticed, was not quite steady. Are your hands shaking? She said. Yes. Why? I'm not sure. Adrian. Yes. I'm here. I know. In the morning. I'm still here. I know, Lena. Did you think I wouldn't be? He thought about it. He actually thought about it. He set the French press down and he put both his hands flat on the counter and he looked at them. I've had a number of nights, he said, in my life where a person was present in the evening who was not present in the morning. Some of them left on their own. Some of them left because I asked them to. I have had very few mornings, Lena, where the person from the night before was still there and where I was glad about it. I don't have good data on what to do in this situation. I'm trying not to do anything stupid. That's the honest answer. That's why my hands are shaking. She looked at him. Her chest did a thing. She did not name the thing. Drink your coffee, Adrian. All right. Come sit over here. All right. He came. He sat. He did not reach for her. She reached for him. She put her hand flat on his chest and felt his heart going, and she said, I'm not going anywhere this morning. I want you to stop being afraid of this morning. All right, he said very quietly. I have to go to work at 1. I know. Polly will drive me. I know. I'll come back tomorrow. Will you? Yes. Lena. What? Thank you. Stop saying that. All right. They drank the coffee. The sun came up the rest of the way. Somewhere in the courtyard, the fountain ran, and the bird made its 3-note call, and Lena Carter, 26 years old, from a town called Millbrook, Pennsylvania, sat in a stranger's kitchen in a borrowed robe and thought very clearly, for the first time in her life, this is how women get into terrible trouble, and then thought, I don't care. It was on a Thursday, about 4 weeks in, that everything cracked. She was on the late shift at the Blue Anchor. It was a quiet night, a dead night. Most of the tourist money had moved up the coast after a festival across the water. And she was wiping down table 6 at around 10:15 when the door chime went. 2 men came in. She knew in the first 2 seconds that they were wrong. It wasn't anything obvious. They were not big men. They were not unshaven. They were in decent shirts, clean slacks, the kind of not quite local, not quite tourist look that blended in most places. But she had spent a month now in rooms with Polly, and Polly had taught her, without ever intending to, what professional men looked like when they were in a room for a reason. These 2 were professional men. They were in the Blue Anchor for a reason, and they were not here for the fish. They sat down at table 3. They did not open the menu. One of them took out a phone and put it face down on the table. The other looked around the room, slowly, once, the way a man counting. His eyes passed over Lena. They did not stop. That was the part that frightened her. They did not stop on her, but they had registered her. She had felt herself be registered, the way she had felt herself be registered by Adrian on the first day. And the feeling was the same feeling, which meant these were men who operated on the same wavelength Adrian operated on, which meant they were Adrian's men, or they were not Adrian's men, and there was no good version of either of those. She went to the kitchen. Sophia. What? 2 men just sat at table 3. Look. Mama Sophia stopped stirring. She did not put the spoon down. She stepped very casually to the cutout where she could see the dining room, and she looked through it for 2 seconds, and she looked away. Dios, she said very quietly, you know them. I don't know them. I know their shape, cariño. Are they his? I don't think so. Then, cariño, listen to me. Listen very carefully. You go into the alley. Now, you take your purse. You do not go through the dining room. You go out the back. You walk 3 streets east and you call your driver, the one you call for the dinners. You call him. You tell him to come pick you up. You tell him exactly what I am telling you now, which is that 2 men came into the Blue Anchor tonight that I do not like the look of and that they did not come in for fish. You tell him. Do you understand? Sophia, cariño. Go, now, go. Come with me. I cannot come with you. I have to be here when they ask a question. I have to answer it in a way that sounds like a woman who does not know anything. If I am not here when they ask, they will know I took you somewhere. Go. Sophia, go. She went. She grabbed her purse off the hook. She went out the back door into the alley. The alley smelled like garbage and the sea. She walked fast. She walked the 3 streets east the way she had been told. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely work the phone. She dialed Polly. He picked up on the first ring this time. Miss Carter? Polly. Two men came into the restaurant. Sophia says she said, they're not tourists, Polly. She said to call you, right now. A single beat of silence on the line. It was the most she had ever heard Polly pause. Where are you now, miss? 3 streets east. The little square with the fountain. The one with the church. Stay exactly where you are. Stand under the street lamp, not in the dark. Keep the phone to your ear. I will be there in 6 minutes. Do you see anyone you recognize near you? No. Does anyone seem to be watching you? She looked around. She tried to make it look like she was adjusting her hair. No, I don't think so. Good. 6 minutes, miss. Keep talking. Is he? He's with me, miss. He's in the car. I'm on my way. Oh my. Okay. Breathe, miss. Okay. Tell me what they looked like. She told him. She told him everything. The shirts, the slacks, the way they had sat down without looking at the menu, the phone placed face down on the table, the scan of the room by the one on the left. Polly said yes and described his shoulders, and she described his shoulders. And then the black sedan came around the corner of the square with its headlights low, and the back door opened while the car was still rolling, and Adrian was in the back seat, and he reached out one hand to her and said, Lena, get in, now. She got in. The car did not stop moving. He pulled the door shut behind her. Polly hit the gas. The square went behind them. They were on a street she didn't recognize, and then another, and then out of town altogether, and Adrian did not speak for a full minute. And then he said in a voice she had not heard before, a voice with something cold underneath it like a blade laid on a table. Polly, the villa or the boat? The boat, sir. The boat. Yes. He turned to her. He took her face in both of his hands. His hands, for once, were not shaking. They were completely steady. And in that steadiness, Lena Carter understood something she had been refusing to understand for a month. Lena, he said, I have to tell you some things. I am going to tell you all of them. I am not going to leave anything out. But I need you to be somewhere safe first, and I am sorry. I am so sorry that this is the way you are going to find out. Find out what? All of it. Adrian, I had you investigated, Lena. You know that. You've known that. But I haven't told you the rest. And tonight, I have to tell you the rest. Because tonight, someone came looking for you. And they didn't come looking for the waitress. They came looking for the woman I've been seen with. And that is... His voice cracked. Just once, a single place. And it shocked her more than anything else that had happened in the last hour. That is a thing I did to you, Lena. That is a thing I did to you, and I am going to fix it, and I am going to tell you every single thing you ever wanted to know before the sun comes up tomorrow, and you are going to get to decide what you do with me after. But tonight, we go to the boat. Tonight, you stay alive. Do you understand me? She looked at him. His face, in the light off the dashboard, was not a face she had ever seen on him before. It was not calm. It was not careful. It was not quiet. It was the face of a man who had just realized in real time that the thing he had been telling himself for a month, that he was just watching a woman cry on a curb, that he was just being curious, that he was just taking a little piece, slowly, quietly, had become something else entirely, that somewhere in the last 4 weeks he had become a man who was afraid of losing her, and that fear was now making his hands do things his head had not authorized. I understand, she said. Say it. I understand, Adrian. Good. He let go of her face. He turned to Polly. The boat, he said again. Call the house. Move the men to the north gate. Tell Giorgio I want to know who the 2 men were by 4 in the morning. I want names. I want who sent them. I want why. And Polly. Yes, sir. If you do not know by 4, wake me anyway. Yes, sir. The car climbed the cliff road in the dark. Somewhere down the coast behind them, the blue anchor was still open, and Mama Sofia was stirring a pot with a face that said nothing, and 2 men at table 3 were asking a question and getting an answer that was not the answer they had come for. And Lena Carter sat beside a man she had let herself fall in love with against the better judgment of every person who had ever cared about her, and she understood, finally, clearly, with no more room for lying to herself about any of it, that she had walked into the kind of trouble her mother had warned her about with her eyes wide open, and that she was not going to walk out of it the same woman. The car kept climbing. The sea kept going dark. Somewhere in her chest, alongside the fear, a smaller, quieter, more honest thing woke up. And it was not panic, and it was not regret. And she did not like what it was, and she did not try very hard to put it back to sleep. The boat was not the sailboat. That was the first thing she understood when the car came around the back end of the marina and onto a private pier she had not known existed on this island. The sailboat had been a thing he used to play at being a normal man for an afternoon. This was the other boat, the real one. White, long, low in the water, 3 decks, lit from underneath so that the water around it glowed faintly green, with 2 men in dark jackets standing on the dock and a third at the gangway who did not look up when the car pulled in, because the third man had been expecting the car. Polly stopped. Adrian got out first. He did not wait for Polly to open her door. He came around and opened it himself and put a hand out, and she took it and stepped out onto the concrete, and the air down here smelled like diesel and salt, and a little bit like her own sweat, which surprised her, until she remembered that she had been sweating through her work shirt for an hour without noticing. "Walk with me," Adrian said. "Eyes forward, don't hurry, don't look at the men." "Okay, Polly will bring your purse." "Okay." They walked. The man at the gangway stepped aside. They went up. The deck was teak, still warm from the day. A door, a hallway, another door. A room with soft lamps and leather chairs and a long window looking out at the harbor. And in the window she could see her own face, very pale, and Adrian's face beside her, and she almost didn't recognize either of them. He closed the door behind them. "Sit," he said. "Please." Are we going somewhere?" "Not tonight. The boat is the safest room on the island tonight. That's why we're on it. We'll sleep here. We'll move in the morning if we need to. Sit, Lena." She sat. Her legs were glad to stop. She hadn't realized they had been shaking until they stopped. He went to a sideboard and poured 2 fingers of something brown into a glass and brought it to her and put it in her hand. "I don't want to drink. It's not for enjoyment. It's for your hands. Drink it." She drank it. It burned. She coughed. Her eyes watered, and she was grateful for it because it gave her an excuse to wipe her face. He sat across from her. He did not sit beside her. He sat where she could see all of him, both hands visible, both feet flat on the floor, the way a man sits in a room when he has decided not to be the scary thing in it. "All right," he said. "I'm going to tell you everything. I said I would. I'm going to. I need you to do one thing for me first." "What?" "I need you to promise me you will let me finish. You can ask any question you want when I'm done. You can ask them during, if you have to. But I know myself, Lena. If you start me on a question, I will answer the question, and I will not get to the parts you need to hear. So let me tell it the way I need to tell it. All right?" "All right. Thank you." He took a breath. He looked at his hands. "My name is Adrian Voss. That is the name on my passport, and that is the name my mother put on my birth certificate. And for most of my life, it has been the name I use in rooms like this one, and a different name in the rooms I work in. In the rooms I work in, I am known by a name I am not going to tell you tonight. I'm not going to tell you tonight because I don't want you to know it. I don't want you to be able to say it out loud by accident on a phone someday and have a stranger listen to the recording and understand who you are to me. The fact that I am not telling you tonight is not a lie. It is the one piece of information I am going to keep from you. And I am telling you right now that I am keeping it, and I am telling you why. If you need to know it, you ask me, and I will tell you tonight, and I will accept the consequence of having told you. Is that fair? Go on. The thing I run, the thing you have been calling a business, is not one thing. It's several. The legitimate parts I described to you on the terrace. Those are real. They are also the polish on top of an older operation. The older operation moves things. I'm not going to tell you tonight what all of those things are. I'm going to tell you the ones that matter for what happened at the restaurant. We move money. That is the largest one. We take money that has been made in one country in a way that cannot be explained, and we put it into another country in a way that can. We do this for a number of organizations. Some of them are criminal organizations. Some of them are people you would recognize if I named them, and you would not believe me. We have done this for a long time. We are good at it. The people who use us trust us because we have never lost a dollar that wasn't ours to lose. That is the single most important sentence in my entire business, Lena. We have never lost a dollar that wasn't ours to lose. Everything else, the reputation, the men at the villa, the careful way Polly drives, all of it exists to make that sentence continue to be true. She sat very still. She held the glass in both hands. The glass had stopped burning her hand a minute ago, and she was only holding it now because putting it down felt like a decision she did not want to make. The other things we do, he went on, are smaller. We move people. Not the way that phrase sounds. We move specific people from places they cannot leave to places they need to be. Witnesses, families, former employees, occasionally people who are being hunted by other organizations whose money is not worth less to us because they are being hunted. Once or twice a year, someone I have decided needs to disappear, from me or from somebody else, disappears. That is not the same as killing them. Sometimes it is. Most of the time it isn't. I am telling you this because I want you to know the shape of it, not because I want you to keep a ledger. We do not sell anything that walks on two legs, Lena. That is a line I have. It is not a line everybody in this world has. It is mine. Several of my competitors do sell things that walk on two legs, and those competitors and I have an understanding. The understanding is that I know what they do and I don't interfere with it, and they know what I do and they don't interfere with it. That is the understanding. It is the most moral thing I can tell you about my life, and it is not very moral. I want you to hear me say it that way. Okay, I have been running this operation for about 19 years. My father was... You know about my father. I told you. My father worked for a man. I started working for the same man. I was good at it, in the way my father was not good at it, which is that I could look at an operation and see the place that was wasting money and fix it. I rose. The man who owned the operation died, and there was a small war. And at the end of the small war, I came out with more of the operation than anyone else. I have spent the years since then turning it from a rough operation into a careful one. I am proud of that work. I am proud of it in a way that I know sounds insane to you, Lena, and I am telling you anyway because I promised you the truth. I am proud of having built something that does not spill. I am proud of having built something where people are paid on time and where the children of people who work for me go to school and where nobody has been shot in the street on my watch in about 6 years. I know what that sentence sounds like from your side of this room. I know. I'm saying it anyway. Ish. Adrian, I said let me finish. I know, I'm letting you. Adrian, you're a person. You're a person saying this. You. I know. Go on. The two men tonight. I don't know yet who they were. I will know by 4. I have a guess. My guess is that they were from a man named Orlov, whose organization we used to move money for, and who I cut off about 11 months ago because he began to do things that were going to bring attention to all of us. He took it badly. He has been looking for a way to put pressure on me since. He has not found one. I do not have family he can reach. I do not have a public life he can ruin. I do not have a weakness he can lean on. That has been the condition of my life for 19 years, Lena. I do not have a weakness he can lean on. Do you understand what I'm telling you now? She closed her eyes. I'm the weakness. You're the weakness. Because you've been seen with me. Because I've been seen with you. 4 dinners in public. Lunch at a restaurant with 3 tables where the owner talks. A boat. Men like Orlov have people in every port on the Mediterranean. Someone saw. Someone passed the name up. Someone passed a photograph up. And tonight, at 10:15, 2 of his people walked into the restaurant you work in to take a long look at you. And probably, Lena, probably to take you somewhere, where he could sit you down across from a camera and make a phone call to me that I would have paid any amount of money to make stop. That is what almost happened to you tonight. I need you to hear me say it out loud, because I can see on your face that you haven't let yourself hear it yet. She opened her eyes. I hear you, she said. Good. Don't say good. I'm sorry. She was silent for a long time. Adrian? Yes. The part where you had me investigated, that first day, on the curb, that wasn't curiosity, was it? He looked at her. Tell me, she said. Tell me the whole thing. Tell me what you haven't told me." He was quiet. "It wasn't only curiosity," he said. Meaning I have been alone, in the way I described to you on the cliff, for a very long time. Meaning the life I run does not produce a person like you in it naturally. Meaning a man in my position who wants a woman in his life cannot meet her at a party, because the women at my parties are not women, they are instruments. Meaning that somewhere in the year before I came to this island, I had begun to think, in a very small way, in a way I did not say out loud to anyone including myself, that if I was ever going to have something like a life, I was going to have to find the life, Lena, pick it, the way I pick everything else. And then I saw a woman crying on a curb at 2 a.m, and something in me said, this one, and I didn't know why, and I told you I didn't know why, and that part was true. But the part where I went back to the villa and had someone look into you, that part wasn't curiosity. That part was me making sure you were what I thought you were, before I let myself come back. She looked at him for a very long time. You went looking, Adrian. Yes. You went looking for a woman with no one. His jaw worked. He didn't answer. That's what my files said, didn't it? Mother dead, father unknown, no siblings, dead-end job, behind on rent, saving for a ticket. No one to come after her if she disappeared into a villa on the west side of an island. No one to ask questions. No one to file a report. I was a profile, Adrian. I was the profile of a woman a man like you could safely pick. Lena, don't. Lena, please. Don't, Lena, please me. Tell me I'm wrong. He put his face in his hands for a second. Just a second. The only time she had ever seen him do it. When he took his hands away, his eyes were very clear and very tired, and he said, in a voice she had never heard from him, a voice that had no control in it at all, "You are not wrong about what I was looking for. You are wrong about what I found." Meaning what? Meaning that I went looking for a woman with no one. And I sat across from her, and I paid for her time, and I had every intention of, I don't know what I intended, Lena. I didn't have a clean plan. I had a shape of a plan. The shape of the plan was that I would spend a month with a woman who had nothing, and I would give her things, and she would be grateful, and that would be that. And at the end of the month, I would go home, and I would know for one more year that I could have had a life and had chosen not to. That was the shape of the plan. That was what I had in my head on the first day. And then she sat down across from me, and she asked me who I was, and she did not lower her eyes when I answered. And on the second night, she told me to stop being good at this by accident. And on the cliff, she said I was lonely in a way she hadn't seen before. And it was not a line, Lena. I could see it wasn't a line. She was afraid of having said it, and she said it anyway. And at some point in the third week, I realized that the plan had stopped being a plan. I realized that I had stopped giving you things because I wanted you to be grateful, and had started giving you things because I couldn't stand to watch you tired. I realized that I was thinking about you during the day, Lena. That I was in meetings in other countries and I was thinking about you. And I realized on the boat, on the sailboat, the afternoon with the ropes, that I had not planned that afternoon. I had just wanted to see you in the sun. And I am 41 years old, and I have not just wanted anything in a very long time. And the other thing I realized, which is the thing that is relevant to tonight, is that at some point in the middle of all of that, I had stopped hiding you. What? I stopped hiding you from my own world. I took you to restaurants where my name was known. I had Polly drive you in a car that has my plates. I let you sit on my terrace. I fed you in my kitchen. I let people at the villa see your face. I did these things, Lena, because at some point I stopped thinking of you as a woman I was visiting for a month and started thinking of you as a woman I was going to have in my life. And I did not notice I had made that switch in time to protect you from it. And tonight 2 men walked into a restaurant on the other side of the island where I have never been seen to come and find you because my carelessness put your face in front of the wrong eyes. That is the whole story of tonight. I did it to you. I am responsible for it. I am going to fix it. But I did it. Manstol. She sat with her glass in her hands. Outside the long window, the harbor was black, and the little lights of the other boats were very small and very far, and the sound of the water against the hull was the sound of a large thing moving. Adrian? Yes. How do you fix it? A lot of ways. Some of them I'm not going to tell you about. Tell me the ones you are. The easiest one is that Orlov becomes a man who is no longer in a position to send people after you. That is already in motion, Lena. It was in motion before tonight, for different reasons, and it is going to be in motion faster now for this one. You're going to? I'm not going to do anything to him personally. I'm going to make a number of phone calls in the next 48 hours. Those phone calls are going to put pressure on him from 3 directions he is not expecting. Within a month, he will have other problems, and those problems will take up the whole of his attention. That is how my world works, Lena. Most problems go away because somebody has decided that a man has bigger ones. I'm going to give Orlov bigger ones. I'm not going to tell you what they are. That is not a thing I am keeping from you to lie to you. That is a thing I am keeping from you, so that if anyone ever asks you a question in a room you cannot walk out of, you can answer it honestly and say you don't know. Fine. The second thing is that you are not going back to the Blue Anchor tomorrow. She looked up. Lena, I'm sorry. You're not. Sophia is there. Sophia is safe. Nobody is looking for Sophia. Sophia is a cook in a restaurant in a harbor, and she has been a cook in restaurants and harbors for 40 years. And men like Orlov know the difference between a cook in a harbor and the woman I have been seen with. Sophia is going to be fine. I will make sure she's fine, Lena. I have already made arrangements. I made them an hour ago in the car. She is going to notice, next week, that the restaurant has a very generous new silent investor who has a single condition on the investment, which is that Dmitri does not raise his voice at any woman on the staff ever again. That is already in motion. That is a thing I was going to do anyway. Adrian? Yes. Why were you going to do that anyway? Because I cannot stand Dmitri Marcos. Because he is a small man with a small voice, and I have been listening to him yell at you through your stories for a month, and I have been meaning to settle it, and tonight gave me the excuse to do it now instead of next week. You were going to buy my boss. I'm going to put a man over your boss. There is a difference. Dmitri will not know. Sophia will know by the end of the week. If you want her to know before then, I can arrange it. I don't. Adrian. I know, Lena. I am telling you too many things at once. I am sorry. You are telling me too many things at once, and you're also describing the shape of a life, Adrian. You're describing a life in which I don't work at the restaurant. You're describing a life in which I live somewhere. You're describing where am I living in this life you're describing. He was quiet. That's what I thought. Lena, where am I living? Where am I? I don't know yet. Wherever you decide. It does not have to be with me. It should not be with me tomorrow. Not as a matter of a relationship, as a matter of safety. I want you in a place that is mine for the next few weeks while I settle the Orlov thing. After that, you tell me what you want the shape to be. I am not, Lena, I am not putting you in a cage. I am putting you somewhere you don't get grabbed off a street on a Thursday. Those are different things. They feel like the same thing. I know they do. Do they? Yes. Because in some ways they are. I am telling you that too. I am trying not to lie to you about any of this. A place where you are safe from Orlov is also a place where I know where you are at all times for the next 3 weeks, and where I have the keys, and where my men know the faces at the gate. I am describing a cage, Lena. I am just describing one with walls that are there for a reason that is not about keeping you. If you tell me tomorrow morning that you would rather be in a hotel I don't own in a city I don't operate in, I will put you on a plane, and I will pay for a year of rent in advance, and I will give you a phone number you can call if anything strange happens, and I will not come to find you. If that is what you want, I will do it. I don't want you to want it. I am telling you anyway. She looked at him. She didn't know what she felt. She felt underneath everything an exhaustion she had never felt before. Not the exhaustion of long shifts, of sore feet, of a cheap bed. A different kind. The exhaustion of having held a door closed inside herself for a very long time against the truth about a thing, and the door having blown open. Adrian. Yes. The night we met. The curb. Would you have done any of this differently if you'd known how it was going to go? He thought for a long time. No, he said. Don't lie to me tonight. I'm not. I have been trying to think of the version of the answer that sounds better. I don't have one. I would have done the same things. I would have walked past you. I would have had you investigated. I would have come back to the restaurant. I would have sat at your table. I would have put the money down. I would have done all of it, Lena, because the alternative is that I never meet you, and I cannot sit in this room tonight and tell you that I would have preferred to never meet you. I would not have preferred it. I prefer tonight. Tonight is a bad night. It is so far the worst night of my life with you in it. It is still better than any night from a year ago. That is my answer. That is not a nice thing to say. I am saying it. She closed her eyes. She tried to be angry. She tried to reach for the anger that was supposed to be there. She could feel the outline of it. She could feel where it was supposed to be, like the outline of a tooth that had come out a long time ago. But the place itself was empty, and inside the empty place was a smaller, more honest thing. And the smaller thing was the thing she had felt on the beach when she had reached across the table and put her fingers on his knuckles, and he had looked at her like a man who had been shot. She opened her eyes. I hate that you went looking for a woman with no one, she said. I know. I hate that I matched the profile. I know. I hate that you did not stop looking when you saw me. I hate that you came back. I hate that you paid me for 5 minutes. I hate that the 5 minutes was the first time anyone had looked at me like I mattered in 2 years. I hate that I'm sitting on your boat. I hate that I'm in this robe. I hate that I already know I'm not going to walk off this boat in the morning. I hate that most of all, Adrian. I hate it because I know it. I know it right now, sitting here. I am not going to walk off this boat in the morning. I am not going to put on my cream dress and go back to the Blue Anchor and stand behind table 6 and wipe crumbs into my palm. I am not going to do it, and I'm not going to do it not because I'm afraid of Orlov, although I am afraid of Orlov, but because I do not want to go back, Adrian. I want, and I didn't want anything for 2 years, and now I want, and the thing I want is a person who went looking for a woman with no one. And I do not know what that makes me. I do not know what that makes me. And I'm not sure I'm ready to find out. And I'm telling you anyway, because you keep telling me the truth, and I have decided I'm going to be the kind of woman who tells it back. Jin. He did not move. He sat across from her with his hands on his knees, and he watched her say all of it, and he did not interrupt and he did not blink. And she realized halfway through that he had stopped breathing and was only breathing again when she stopped speaking. Lena. What? Thank you. I told you to stop saying that. I know. I'm going to say it anyway. Thank you. Thank you for the sentence. Thank you for the whole sentence. Thank you for not making me chase half of it out of you. Don't make me regret it. I'm going to try very hard. Try. I'm going to try, Lena. They did not touch that night. That was the part she would remember later with the most confusion and also the most gratitude. He had put her in a cabin at the far end of the hall from his own. He had checked the locks on the window from inside the room and then from outside in the hall to show her how they worked. He had pointed at a red button by the bed and said if anything happens, that wakes up the whole boat, including me. He had said if you want to leave at 3 in the morning, you press it, and Polly will take you to any airport you name, and I will not come down from my cabin until you're gone. He had said this with a steadiness that had cost him something, and she had watched it cost him, and she had not made him say it twice. Then he had stood in her doorway with his hand on the frame and said, "Good night, Lena." And she had said, "Good night, Adrian," and he had shut the door. She had lain on top of the covers in her borrowed robe and looked at the ceiling for a long time. She had not pressed the red button. She had slept the way she had slept the morning after the first night at the villa, hard, without dreams, a kind of sleep that was more like falling than like resting. She had woken at 5:30, the way she always did, because her body did not trust alarms. She had put on the clothes that someone, at some point during the night, had brought into the cabin and folded on a chair. A plain linen dress, a pair of sandals, a thin cotton cardigan, all of them, she noticed, in her size, and all of them new. And she had decided that that was a thing to be angry about later and not now. She had walked out into the main room of the boat and found Adrian already up, already showered, in the same dark gray pants and the same white t-shirt as the first morning at the villa, and a French press on the low table, and 2 cups. He had looked up when she came in. "You stayed." "I stayed. I didn't sleep." "I did." "Good, good, Lena. That's good. Stop saying good. I will try. She had sat. He had poured. She had drunk the coffee. Somewhere above them, on deck, there were quiet, competent footsteps. Men moving around the boat in a way that said the boat had a schedule for the day that had already started without her. Paulie had put his head in the door at around 6:15 and said, 4 o'clock call came through, sir. It was Orlov's, 3 of them. They are on the 7 ferry out, and Adrian had nodded once, and Paulie had left, and the morning had kept going. At 7, the boat had moved. Not far, not out to sea. Around the east side of the island to a second marina she had not known existed, in a cove behind a headland, where a car had been waiting that was not the black sedan but a silver one she did not recognize. Adrian had walked her off the boat with his hand on her lower back, the first time in 19 hours he had touched her, and the hand had not lingered. It had only been there long enough to say, here, here, and then it was gone again. They had driven inland, up a road she had never seen, through a gate she had never seen, into a courtyard of a house that was not the villa. A smaller house, a plainer one, white walls, red tile, a fig tree in the yard, shutters open to a view of olive trees, and very far away, the sea. "What is this place?" she said. "A house," he said. "Whose?" "Mine. On paper, it belongs to a shell company that belongs to another shell company that belongs to a man who has been dead for 8 years and whose estate is still in probate because of a dispute between his children. In practice, it is mine, and it is not known to be mine, and the 2 men at the gate are men I trust with my life. You will stay here for 3 weeks, possibly 4. Not longer than 4. I will come in the evenings when I can. I will not come when I can't. Paulie will be here full time. There is a woman named Maria who will come in the mornings and the evenings to cook and to clean, and she does not speak English. You will be safe here, Lena. You will also be bored. I'm sorry about the boredom. It is the best I can do." She had walked the rooms. The house was beautiful. That was the ugliest part of it. It was not a cage. It was a love letter. There were books in the shelves in a dozen languages, and a piano in the front room that was in tune, and a bathtub with feet that had been repainted, and a kitchen with a row of hanging copper pots that were older than she was. It was the house of a woman who had lived a life, and every single object in it was an object Adrian Voss had chosen to leave alone. He had not redone it. He had not made it his. He had waited, she understood as she walked through it, for a woman he could put inside it. She stopped in the doorway of the front room. "Adrian." "Yes." "How long have you owned this house?" "A beat. 7 years." "And you have been waiting 7 years for a woman to put in it." He did not lie. "Yes," he said. She looked at him. She was going to be angry about this one, she thought very clearly. Not today. Not this week. Maybe not this month. But someday on an ordinary afternoon, in this house, or in the next one, or on a beach in a country she hadn't seen yet, she was going to turn to him, and she was going to throw this sentence in his face. And he was going to catch it, the way he caught everything. And he was going to say, "I know, Lena," the way he said everything. And the anger was going to leave her hands, the way anger always did with him, because he did not fight any of it. He only stood there and let her hit him with the truth he had already admitted to, and somehow, that was worse than if he had lied. That day, she didn't throw it. That day she walked to the piano, and she ran her fingers along the wood at the top of it, and she said, "I don't play." "I know." "I could learn." "You could." "Would you teach me?" "I don't play either, Lena." "Then what is the piano for?" "I don't know. It came with the house. I liked the sound of the word piano in the inventory. I didn't have it taken out." She laughed. It surprised her. It surprised him. It was a real laugh, short, tired, a laugh that had nowhere else to go. And he stood in the doorway of a house he had been keeping for her for 7 years, and he listened to her laugh in it, and he did not say anything, because he was smart enough, still, to know when not to say anything, and that was the small thing that was going to keep her in that house. And he knew it, and she knew he knew it, and the morning kept going. Out in the courtyard, the fig tree moved in a little wind. Somewhere very far down the road, a car was coming, slowly. Maria probably with the groceries. The olives beyond the wall were silver in the sun. The sea was a line at the horizon, and Lena Carter, standing in the front room of a house that had been waiting for her for 7 years, with the keys in her pocket and a man she was afraid to name the word for across the room, understood that she had made her choice some time ago. Maybe weeks ago, maybe on the curb 2 years ago, when she hadn't known she was being watched, and that the rest of her life was going to be about finding out what the choice had cost her, and what exactly she had bought with it. The 3 weeks became 4 weeks, and the 4 weeks became 6, and at some point in the middle of the second month, Lena stopped counting, which was, she understood later, the point. Maria did not speak English, as promised. Maria was somewhere between 50 and 70, with a strong back and small hands and a laugh that sounded like a door closing. She cooked like a woman who had cooked for a large family her whole life and had lost the family and had kept the cooking. She taught Lena the words for bread and for oil and for open the window and for the tomatoes today are better than yesterday, and for that man again, which was Maria's phrase for Adrian when he showed up earlier than expected, and which Maria said with her eyebrows raised and her mouth not quite smiling, and which Lena learned to answer, after the third time, with the only phrase in that language she ever got comfortable saying, which was, "I know, Maria, I know." Adrian came in the evenings when he could. He did not come when he couldn't. He was scrupulous about that the way he was scrupulous about everything. He did not surprise her. He did not show up late. He did not show up early. He called Polly 2 hours before he arrived, and Polly told Maria, and Maria told Lena, and Lena decided whether she was going to meet him at the door or at the piano or in the courtyard under the fig tree or in the kitchen. And he walked in and found her wherever she had chosen to be found and did not act like any of her choices was wrong. He did not sleep there for the first 11 days. On the 11th day, she said at dinner, without looking up from her plate, "Adrian." "Yes." "You're going back to the villa tonight." "I am." "Don't." He did not answer right away. She watched him not answer. She watched him set down his fork, very carefully, in a way that meant he was buying himself a moment. And she watched the moment end, and then he said, All right, that's all you're going to say? You told me not to make a speech the last time. I was trying to learn." "This one, Adrian, this one you can make a small one." "I'd like to stay, Lena. I have been wanting to stay since the first night. I haven't stayed because I didn't want you to feel like staying was the price of the house. I'm not going to refuse now because refusing now would mean I think you're asking me for the wrong reason, and I don't want to insult you like that. So, all right, I'll stay." That was a speech. It was a small one. It was fine. "Thank you. Stop saying that." "I'll try." Tut. The Orlov thing unwound the way he said it would, except that it took longer. He had told her a month. It took closer to 3. She did not ask him for details, and he did not volunteer any, except on the 3rd Thursday of the second month, when he came in late, later than he had ever come in, almost 11 at night, and he stood in the doorway of the courtyard in his black suit without the jacket, just the shirt, and his hair was wet, which she realized with a small cold shock meant he had showered somewhere before coming to her, which he only did when he had been somewhere he did not want to bring into her house. "Lena, you washed up before you came in." "Yes." "Why?" "You know why." "Tell me anyway." "Because tonight the thing ended, and I didn't want to come to you smelling of it." She looked at him for a long time. "Did you?" "No, I didn't. I haven't, for 14 years, as I told you. That part is still true. But I was in the room tonight when something ended, and I wanted a shower before I walked through your door, that was all." "Come in, Adrian." He came in. He sat at the small wooden table in the courtyard, where Maria had left a plate of bread and oil under a cloth. And Lena poured him a glass of wine, and they sat in the dark with the fig tree rustling and the olive silver under the moon, and the house behind them as quiet as a held breath. And after a long time he said, "It's done. He's not going to send anyone to you again. He is not going to send anyone to anyone I know again. That part is over." "Good." "Don't say good. You told me not to." "I'm saying it anyway." He almost laughed. He picked up the wine glass. He drank. "Adrian." "Yes." "Are you going to tell me how it ended?" "I don't think so." "Okay." "Are you going to ask?" "I don't think so." "Okay." "Adrian?" "Yes." "Is this what the rest of my life looks like?" He looked at her. He did not flinch. He had learned, over these weeks, not to flinch at the questions she asked at 10 o'clock at night in a courtyard. He had learned a great many things, she had noticed, about how to be in the presence of a woman who did not let him get away with the professional version of himself. Not quite, he said. Most nights, no. Most nights are the nights you have already had. Maria, in the morning. The piano you don't play. The olives. The books you've started on the shelf in the front room. That is most nights, Lena. 95 out of 100. Maybe 98. Tonight was one of the ones that isn't. I don't want to lie to you and say there won't be others. There will. Not often. Not, if I can help it, ever about you again. But there will be some. And I will, each time, come to you after I've had the shower. And if that is a thing you can live with, you tell me. And if it isn't, you tell me that too. She did not answer that night. She answered it a week later on a Tuesday afternoon in the kitchen while Maria was out buying fish. Adrian was sitting at the counter reading a newspaper in a language she didn't know, and she was chopping something without paying attention to it, and she said without looking up, "I can live with it." He did not pretend to misunderstand. "All right," he said very quietly. "I want you to know what I'm agreeing to, Adrian. I'm not going to become a woman who pretends the nights don't exist. I'm not going to be the woman at the dinner who smiles in the right places while you take a call in the hall. I'm going to know. I'm going to know the nights are the nights. I'm going to know that there is a world where you are a man I do not fully recognize. I am not going to ask what you did in it, but I am going to know. And you are going to know that I know. And we are going to live around that, Adrian. Around it. Not over it. I am not strong enough to live over it. Nobody is. I have thought about it, and I do not believe anybody is. So we live around it. And on the nights when it comes into the house, which it will, you take your shower, and you sit at my table, and you eat the bread, and you drink the wine, and you let me be angry about it without pretending to be sorry for the part you are not sorry for. That's the deal. I'm telling you the deal. Do you take it?" He set the newspaper down. "I take it," he said. "Say the whole thing." "I take the deal, Lena, around it, not over it." "Good." "You're still saying good." "I can't help it. I got it from you, son." She didn't go back to the Blue Anchor. She wrote to Mama Sofia instead. Long letters, handwritten. Polly mailed them from different cities, which was a thing Lena did not ask about, and which Polly did not explain. Sofia wrote back. Sofia's letters came to a post office box 3 villages over that a man picked up on Fridays, and that somehow, on Saturday mornings, sat on Lena's kitchen table next to the coffee. Sofia wrote in a big slanted hand, in a mix of English and the other language, and her letters were full of weather, and the names of regulars, and one time a complaint about the new waitress, and once, in the 3rd month, a single sentence that made Lena put her face on the kitchen table for 10 minutes. "Dimitri has been so quiet lately, cariño. It is like living with a different man. I don't know what has changed, and I'm not going to ask," Lena wrote back. "I don't know either, Sofia. Please don't ask." Sofia wrote back, "I was not going to. Eat, cariño, right soon." She did not tell Sofia where she was. Sofia did not ask. Sofia wrote the letters to a post office box in a village in a different country and put her faith in the man who picked them up. And Lena sometimes wondered, holding those letters, how Sofia had guessed so much. She had guessed that Lena would not be coming back. She had guessed that Lena would be writing. She had guessed that Adrian, whoever and whatever he was, had enough infrastructure to move paper across a sea once a week. Sofia had lived a life Lena did not know the shape of. And in the months she was gone from the Blue Anchor, Lena thought about that life more than she had when she'd been standing next to Sofia at the kitchen counter every day. Sofia had been careful with her for 14 months. Sofia had known, before Lena knew, what kind of man walked into a harbor restaurant in a $5,000 suit. Sofia had lost people. Sofia had been careful with Lena because Sofia had once, Lena understood now, not been careful enough with someone. She mailed the last long letter at the end of the 4th month. She signed it, "Your Lena." The reply that came back was one line. "Be happy, cariño. Be honest with yourself about what you are. That is the only piece of advice I have left." Lena put the letter in a drawer in the kitchen. She took it out sometimes for the rest of her life. She learned his world slowly, not by being told. He did not take her into meetings. He did not bring home ledgers. He did not introduce her to the men in the dark cars, beyond Polly and the 2 at the gate, whose names she learned because they were in her life every day. But she learned it in pieces, the way you learn a language, in the small movements of his face when certain phone calls came in the names that appeared and disappeared at dinners, in the way certain cities came up in conversation, and certain other cities never did, in the weight of the silences. She learned that his world was smaller than she had imagined and bigger than it should have been. She learned that there were perhaps 24 men who mattered, and that he knew all their first names and their wives' first names and their children's, and that he had, for most of them, a file like the one he had made on her. She learned that the money moved in a way that looked, from the outside, like the most boring legitimate commerce in the world, and that the boredom was the most artistic thing about it. She learned that the violence, when it happened, and in the 2 years she lived in the house outside the village, she knew it happened 4 times, was never close to her, never loud, never messy. It happened somewhere else, to someone she didn't know. And Adrian came home late, and took a shower, and sat at her table. She learned the difference between the nights that were about his work and the nights that were about something else. She learned the word something else. Something else was the country to the east where he had stopped doing business 9 months into their life together, because a man in that country had said something about her at a dinner that Adrian had learned about a week later. Adrian did not do anything about the man. He simply stopped doing business in the country. $300 million of business, she learned afterwards, from Polly. In a stray sentence, Polly did not mean to let drop. $300 million walked away from because a stranger had said something about a woman the stranger had never met. She was angry about that when she learned it. She had not expected to be angry about it. She was angry because it meant that she had cost him $300 million, and she had not been asked, and she did not want to be the kind of woman whose presence cost a man $300 million in rooms she was not in. She told him on a Sunday morning in the kitchen. Adrian? Yes. Polly told me about the Varna deal. He looked up from his coffee. He did not look at Polly, who was in the courtyard and who could not hear them, but she saw his mouth tighten in the particular way it tightened when Polly was going to be spoken to later. Don't be angry at Polly, she said. I got it out of him. He didn't offer. All right. $300 million, Adrian, give or take. Because of me. Not because of you. Because of a man at a dinner. Because of a man at a dinner who said a thing about me. Yes. Don't do that again. What? Don't walk away from $300 million because a man said something about me. I can't be that. I can't be the woman who cost you that. I don't know how to be the woman who cost you that, Adrian. I wasn't raised to be her. I don't want to be her. If someone says something about me, you tell me, and I decide what to do about it. And if I decide to do nothing, you do nothing. You don't settle the world around me without telling me. Don't do it again. He watched her for a long time. All right, he said. Say the whole thing. I won't settle the world around you without telling you. You're going to break that promise. I'm going to try not to. You're going to break it. Yes, probably. Sometimes. On small things. I am going to try very hard, Lena. I'm going to tell you when I break it. That's the best you can do? That is the best I can do. All right. Lena. What? I am not sorry about Varna. I know you're not. I wanted to tell you that. I'm not going to pretend to be sorry about a thing I'm not sorry about. I know. It's why I'm not leaving. Drink your coffee. He drank his coffee. She went back to the world, slowly. That was the part she was most proud of later. She did not lock herself in the house. She did not let him lock her in the house. She made him teach her. She made him teach her about the money, not the criminal parts, the parts she did not want to know, but the parts that were on the tax returns. She made him walk her through the vineyard and through the hotel chain and through the shipping company that was, he told her, the least interesting of all of them, which she did not believe and which she learned, over about 8 months, he had been telling the truth about. She asked him questions he did not have answers to. She asked him why the hotel chain lost money in 2 cities and made money in 6. And when he did not know, she went to those 2 cities, with Polly, with 2 other men she had come to know, and she sat in the lobbies for 3 days each, and she wrote things in a notebook, and she came home and she told him, at the kitchen table, the things she had seen. The woman at the front desk of the hotel in the first city who looked through every guest without seeing them. The smell of old cigarettes in the second city that the cleaners were not getting out of the curtains. The way the morning shift at the first hotel began 27 minutes later than the schedule said, every single day, because the manager was sleeping with one of the night staff and covered for her. Small things, human things, the kinds of things a man in a suit did not notice from a ledger. He fired the manager, not because of the affair, because of the 27 minutes. He did not ask her to be a consultant. She did not ask to be one. But a year in, she was one. A year and a half in, she was on the payroll of the hotel chain, in a position with a vague title and a real salary, paid to a bank account in her own name, which was the first bank account in her own name she had had in her life that had more than $1,000 in it at any given time. She paid for her own things out of that account. She insisted on it. He thought it was funny. She did not think it was funny. It was the first thing she had been angry at him about without him having earned it, and he had, to his credit, not argued with her about it, and she had made it a rule for the two of them that was never discussed again. Her money was her money. His money was his money. The house was his. The food was his. Her clothes were hers. It was an absurd arrangement. They both knew it was absurd. She made him do it anyway. In the middle of the second year, she brought up the thing she had been thinking about for a while. Adrian. Yes. I want to go back to the Blue Anchor. He didn't look up. He was reading something on his phone. He said, to work. No, to visit. Ah. I want to see Sophia. I want her to see me, not a letter, her own eyes. All right. You're not going to say anything. What did you think I was going to say? I thought you were going to say it wasn't safe. It's been safe for a long time, Lena. I don't always tell you when things become safe. I should. I'm sorry. Okay. When do you want to go? Next week. I'll have Polly drive you. I won't come. No. No? You're coming, Adrian. He did look up at that. You're sure? I'm sure. Sophia's going to give you a look that is going to take a year off your life. I want to watch her do it. I have been imagining it for months. Lena. What? You're a little bit frightening. I know. They went. She wore a dress Sophia would recognize, one of the dresses from the drawer in her old room that she had had Polly retrieve a year earlier and that she had kept, unwashed, in a closet in the house, because she had known she would want to walk into the Blue Anchor in it someday. She had gained a few pounds in the kind of way a woman gained weight when she had finally stopped being hungry. Her hair was longer, her skin was less gold. She had not stood in the sun behind a kitchen for almost 2 years. The Blue Anchor was exactly the same. That was the part that caught her in the throat. The wobbly tables, the ceiling fan, the chipped paint, Dimitri at the bar, on his phone, thinner than she remembered, quieter, older. The new girl, no longer new, at table 6 with an order pad. The smell of frying oil, the sound of the sea through the open back door. Sophia came out of the kitchen when she heard the door chime, because Sophia always came out when she heard the door chime to check whether she needed to send another plate down. She was wiping her hands on her apron. She was saying something to someone over her shoulder. She looked up. She stopped. She stopped the way a person stops in the middle of a street because she has recognized someone and has to decide in the next 2 seconds whether to cross to the other side. Sophia did not cross. Sophia walked across the Blue Anchor with her apron still in her hands and her mouth a flat line, and she came up to Lena and she looked at her, head to foot, once, the way a mother looks at a daughter who has been gone for a long time and who is about to be asked where she has been, and then Sophia did not ask. Sophia said, "You got fatter, cariño." "A little." "Good." "Don't say good, Sophia. You don't get to say good." "I say good if I want. Come here." Sophia hugged her. Sophia was not a hugger. Sophia hugged her for a long time, hard, the way a small, strong woman hugs a thing she is afraid of breaking and is not going to break anyway. When Sophia pulled back, her eyes were wet and she was furious about it, and she wiped them with the back of her wrist in a short, angry swipe. And she looked over Lena's shoulder at the man standing 2 paces back in the door of the Blue Anchor in a black suit without a tie. Sophia looked at Adrian. Adrian looked at Sophia. Sophia did not smile. "You," Sophia said. "Me. You are the man. I am. I don't like you. I know. You treat her well. I try. You try very hard. Yes, ma'am. Don't call me ma'am. I'm not old enough for ma'am. No, Sophia. She wrote me letters. I know she did. They came to a box in another country. Yes. You paid for that. Yes. Bueno. Sophia. Yes. Thank you. Don't thank me. I didn't do it for you. Come. Both of you. Sit. I will feed you. Dmitri is not going to say anything because Dmitri has learned in the past 2 years when to not say anything. Sit, cariño. Sit. Man in the suit. They sat. Sophia fed them. She fed them the paella and the fish and the bread and a small cold soup that Lena had never had before, which Sophia said she had been working on for a year. And she pulled up a chair at the end of the table and sat with them while they ate. And she watched Lena eat the way mothers watch daughters eat after long absences, which is with a satisfaction that is also a grief. Sophia said once, quietly, while Adrian was in the bathroom, because Adrian was smart enough still to leave them alone for 5 minutes, Cariño. Yes. Are you happy? Lena thought about it. She did not give the easy answer. Sophia had not asked the easy question. I am not happy the way people mean when they use the word Sophia. I don't think I'm going to be happy that way. I don't think I was ever going to be happy that way. I am. I am something I did not know I could be. I am not invisible. I am not tired in the way I was tired. I am not alone, Sophia, and that is a thing I did not know how to want until I had it. I am inside something. It is a bad thing in some ways. I am inside a bad thing, but I am inside it with my eyes open, and I am inside it on my own terms, and I am... Sophia, I have a job. I have a real job. I have an apartment I could walk into tomorrow morning and rent with my own money without asking anyone. I have a passport I renewed myself. I have a life I made. With him, yes. Around him, yes. But I made it. That is the most honest answer I can give you. Sophia listened. Sophia nodded, once, slowly. That is not happiness, cariño. I know. That is something harder than happiness. I know. You will be all right. I hope so. I am telling you so, cariño. I am old and I know some things. You will be all right. He will die before you. Men like him always die before the women. You will be all right after. You will be... Cariño? You will be a woman at the end of her life in a house she knows, with money of her own, and a drawer full of letters, and a garden, and a long memory. That is not happiness. That is something more useful. Now eat the rest of your fish. He is coming back. Lena ate the rest of her fish. Adrian came back. He sat down. He did not ask what they had talked about. Sophia looked at him one more time, with her eyebrows up, and she said, You are going to bring her back to see me once a year. Not more, not less. Yes, Sophia. And on her birthday, you are going to call this restaurant, and I am going to answer the phone, and you are going to put her on, and she is going to talk to me for 10 minutes. Yes, Sophia. And when I die, hombre en el traje, you are going to come to the funeral, in the black suit. Not a different one. The black one. Do you understand me? I understand you. Bueno. She got up. She picked up their plates. She went back into the kitchen. She did not come out again before they left, because Sophia was not the kind of woman who said goodbye twice, and Lena knew it, and Adrian, to his credit, did not make her. Sam. They walked out of the Blue Anchor into the afternoon sun. The harbor was bright. The cats were in their alleys. The tourists were eating ice cream on the seawall. The ferry was crossing. It was all exactly the way it had been, and Lena was not the way she had been, and the discrepancy was very large, and she had to stop walking for a second to let her chest catch up with it. Adrian stopped beside her. He did not say anything. He had learned. Adrian. Yes. I used to sit on that curb there. I know. You stood right there, when you watched me. Yes. For 8 minutes. Yes. What were you thinking about? He looked at the curb. He looked at her. I was thinking, he said slowly, that I was probably about to do something I was not going to be able to undo, and that I was going to do it anyway. And I was thinking about whether I was going to be able to live with it, and I decided I was. And I walked back to the villa. That was all 8 minutes of it, Lena. There was nothing else. And now? And now? Can you live with it? He thought for a long time. I can live with it, he said. I can live with it in the way a man lives with what he did. I am not proud of the shape of how it started, Lena. I have never been proud of it. I have been grateful for 2 years that the shape of how it started did not break the thing that came after. I know it could have. I know a different woman would have broken it. I know a wiser woman would have. I know that you being the woman who didn't is the accident that my life has turned out to be about. I think about that when I cannot sleep. I think about it when I wake up before you. I think about it when I am in the rooms I don't bring home. I do not pretend to myself that I deserved it. I take it anyway. That is my answer. I am not sorry I took it. I will not be sorry. I am only grateful. In the way a man in my line of work is allowed to be grateful about anything, which is quietly, and to one person, and only when she asks. Washri hombre miyagiki. She looked at him. Adrian. Yes. That was a speech. I know. It was okay. Thank you. Stop saying that. I'm going to stop. You're not, though. No, I'm not. I know. They went home, not to the house with the fig tree. They had moved by then to a different house, a bigger one, on a quieter road, in a different country. The house with the fig tree had been the first house. There would be a third house, eventually, and a fourth. Maria was no longer Maria. Polly was still Polly. The black sedan was a different black sedan with a different plate. The men at the gate were different men. Some things did not change. Adrian was still Adrian. Lena was still Lena, and was also somebody else by then, somebody she had built on top of Lena in the way a house got built on top of a foundation. She was 30, in the new house. She had gray in her hair, a single streak at the left temple, which she had earned one night that she did not discuss. She was running, by then, one of the hotels herself, from a desk in a back office in a city neither of them had lived in before. She had staff. She had a secretary. She had a car that was hers and a driver who was hers and not Adrian's. She had, at the back of her desk drawer, the card Polly had left in the cup holder the first night, yellow now, the ink a little faded, which she had never once used again to reach Adrian, and which she kept anyway because it was the object that had meant you can still leave. She had kept many objects that meant you can still leave. She had never left. But she had kept the objects, and Adrian had never asked about them. And that was another of the unspoken rules of the life. She did not forgive him, exactly. That was the part she had come to understand most clearly in the third year. Forgiveness was not the verb. Forgiveness was a word from a different kind of life, a life where the wrongs were small and the relationships were clean, and a woman could say, I forgive you, and mean it. She did not live in that kind of life. She had chosen not to. In her kind of life, forgiveness was not available, and what was available in its place was a long, careful adult decision, renewed every morning, to keep being in the room with a man whose earlier choices she could not undo and did not want to. Some mornings the decision was easy. Most mornings. Some mornings it wasn't. On the mornings it wasn't, she said so. She said, Adrian, I'm not easy this morning, and he did not ask why, and he did not try to fix it, and he made her coffee, and he went to work, and he came home. And by the next morning she was easy again, and she did not apologize for the day before, because he would have told her not to, and she did not want to give him the chance. She did not become her mother. That was the other thing she had been afraid of, in the first year. She had thought privately that she would turn into Diane Carter, a woman who had been eaten alive by a small life, who had died young, who had lived tired. She had thought that a life with Adrian Voss would make her tired in a different way and would end the same. It had not. She had gotten less tired, not more. She had gotten sharper. She thought sometimes, looking at herself in the mirror in a hotel lobby, a little harder. The hardness was the part she watched. The hardness was the part she was careful about. She did not want to become the kind of woman she could not go back and be kind to. She wrote herself notes about it, sometimes, in a small notebook she kept in her desk, a habit she had picked up from the hotel rounds. Don't snap at the girl at the front desk today. She is tired. You used to be her. Call Sophia tonight. It is not her birthday. Call anyway. Remember the 22 € seafood platter. You were hungry. The hardness did not win. Lena Carter did not let it. That was, in the end, the thing she was most proud of. The thing that made her look at Diane Carter's photograph in its cracked frame on the shelf in the new house and say, out loud, on quiet afternoons, "I think we're doing all right, Mama. I think I'm doing all right." Quote, on a summer night in the 4th year, they were out on the terrace of the new house, which was not on an island, and Adrian was reading a book. He had gone back to reading. He had started very quietly, about 8 months after the night on the boat. She had not said anything about it when he had. She had only, one Sunday, walked past the armchair in the front room and seen an open book face down on the arm of it, and she had thought about it for the rest of the day, and that night at dinner she had said, "Good book?" And he had said, "Yes, actually," and she had said, "Tell me about it." And he had told her haltingly for about 2 minutes, and she had seen, while he told her, the eyes of a man who was remembering how it felt to be a person who read. He read a lot now. He read every night. He sat on the terrace with a book, and he read it. And he did not perform the reading, and he did not pretend about it. And sometimes she caught him, at the end of a chapter, putting his hand flat on the open page and looking out at whatever view they had, and she knew what that was. He was making sure he was still a person. He did not need to do it as often as he used to. That night, he was reading something in English for a change, a thick novel with a cracked spine, and Lena was drinking a glass of wine and half watching him, and he looked up at her over the book. "What?" "Nothing." "Lena, I was just thinking." "Tell me." "I was thinking about the girl on the curb." "Ah, I was thinking, it is so strange, Adrian. The thing about being invisible is that you think it is permanent. You think there is no version of your life in which you are not invisible. You walk around thinking it so hard that you stop noticing you think it. And then, for one reason or another, a good reason or a very, very bad one, somebody looks at you. And the whole theory of your life cracks. And the cracking is the part nobody warns you about. The cracking is bigger than the looking. That's the thing nobody says, Adrian. Nobody tells you that being seen for the first time is going to hurt. Nobody tells you it is going to make you angry. Nobody tells you that a huge part of you is going to hate the person who saw you, for a long time, for making you realize how long you spent not being seen by anyone else. I'm not complaining. I am telling you the truth of it. I hated you for a long time, Adrian, underneath everything, not for the things you did, for the fact that it took you to make me notice how small I had made myself, because nobody before you had given me a reason to stop. That's the thing about the curb. I was sitting on that curb for 26 years. You just happened to walk past the last minute of it. He closed the book. He put it on the little table between them. He did not reach for her. He had not learned how to reach for her without asking, in 4 years, and she suspected he never would, which was, she had come to understand, one of the gifts of the thing they had built. "I know," he said. "You know?" "I know. I have thought about it too." "Have you?" "Yes. I have thought, Lena, I have thought that the worst thing I did to you was not the investigating, and not the profile, and not the night on the boat. The worst thing I did to you was show you what it felt like to be seen, because now you cannot ever go back to not knowing. And if I had not walked past that curb, you would have left this island, and you would have gone back to, I don't know, somewhere. And you would have been Lena Carter, and you would have been invisible, and you would have been all right, in the way invisible people are all right, and the theory of your life would never have cracked. And I broke that for you. I broke it for my own reasons, and I have thought about it, and I am sorry about that part, Lena. Not the other parts. That part." She looked at him for a long time. "I don't want to go back, Adrian. I know. I wouldn't go back, even if you offered. I know that too. I just wanted you to know I hated you for a while." "I know, Lena. How did you know?" "Because you have told me in one way or another 4 times a year for 4 years. "Have I?" "Yes." "Huh?" "It's all right. I keep count for both of us." She laughed. It was a good laugh. It was a laugh with a lot of years in it, and a lot of nights, and a lot of arguments, and a lot of bread at a lot of kitchen tables, and a lot of mornings when she had decided again to stay. It was not the laugh of a young woman. It was not the laugh of a happy woman. In the simple sense of the word happy. It was a laugh that knew the difference between happiness and the other thing, the useful thing, the thing Sophia had named on the afternoon they had gone back to the Blue Anchor. Adrian watched her laugh. He did not smile, exactly. He never quite smiled. But his face did the thing his face did, the almost smile at the corner of the mouth. And he picked up his book again, and he opened it, and he put his free hand, palm up, on the arm of his chair between them. She put her hand on top of his. They sat there, in the dark, on the terrace of a house in a country that was not the country she was born in, with the lights of a city she had learned to read at the bottom of a long hill, and the book open on his lap, and the wine cooling in her glass, and the summer moving the leaves in the lemon trees at the edge of the terrace. And this, Lena thought sometimes, in the years that followed, was the thing she had learned, the thing she would tell a younger woman if she ever met one on a curb at 2 a.m, that the world will not ask you what kind of life you want before it starts handing you one, that nobody is coming to rescue you, and that when somebody does come, you should look very carefully at what they want in return, and you should be honest with yourself about whether you are willing to pay it, and then you should decide. And then you should stop asking yourself whether you decided right, that a woman's life is not the sum of her best moments or her worst, that it is the sum of the mornings she got out of bed and chose the thing again, that being invisible is a sickness, and being seen is also a sickness, and the cure for neither of them is a man, that the cure, if there is a cure, is the quiet work of becoming a woman who can look at her own face in a mirror and recognize it, tired, scarred gold from a different sun than the one she was born under, not sorry, not smug, not running from anything, not running toward anything either, and say out loud to nobody, "This is me. This is who I turned into. I am the one who did this," and then go downstairs and drink the coffee and start the day. She said it sometimes, on the hardest mornings, on the easy ones too. She said it on the last morning of her life in the old world, which was the first morning of her life in the new one, and she said it again on the morning Sophia died, 11 years later, in a hospital in the village, in a room that smelled like lemon cleaner, with Lena on one side of the bed and Dmitri on the other. Because Dmitri had, in the end, been a less small man than either of them had believed, and had cried harder at Sophia's funeral than anyone, and had worn a suit that did not fit. She said it on the morning she turned 40, in a house by a lake in a country neither she nor Adrian had been born in, with a garden she had planted herself, and a drawer full of letters, and a piano she had finally, at 37, taught herself to play badly. She said it on the morning Adrian, in the end, did die before her, the way Sophia had promised he would, in a bed in that same house by the lake, with his hand in hers and his eyes open, and his voice, at the very end, gone soft in a way it had never been, saying only her name, twice, and then nothing. She said it that morning, too. She said it, and she went downstairs, and she made the coffee, and she drank it alone at the kitchen table, and she cried for a long time, and she stopped crying. Eventually, because Lena Carter had always stopped, eventually, and because the day kept going whether she stopped or not. She lived a long time after. She lived long enough to become the woman Sophia had promised her she would be, in a house she knew, with money of her own, and a drawer full of letters, and a garden, and a long memory. And sometimes in the late afternoons she sat on the porch with a glass of wine, and she looked out across the lake, and she thought about a girl on a curb outside a cheap restaurant at 2 a.m, crying because she had broken a 12-euro wine glass and did not know how she was going to eat the next day. And who did not know, who could not possibly have known, that a man in a $5,000 suit was standing on the other side of the street, watching her for 8 minutes, about to do a thing he could not undo. She did not say, "I wish he had kept walking." She did not say, "I am glad he didn't." She said quietly, to no one, the way her mother used to say things to no one on the porch in Millbrook at the end of long days, "Well, here we are." And that, in the end, was her whole answer to the question of her life. Here we are.